It's also brought to you by the puppet master of Twitch Politics, Danabo, who does all the booking and questions for the show. Danabo had a really fun time booking for this show, but so glad everybody's here. The people who made it, we love you. Thank you for your punctuality. Be sure to check out Danabo and his content. There's a lot of great content on his channel. His kid yelling at birds and karaoke and that kind of stuff. So it's great. First off, we'll get into introductions for our guests. These are some of the greatest voices in Twitch politics. Okay, easily. So we're gonna go one by one. So everyone, please shout yourselves out where people can find you and what you usually stream about. We'll start with Hardwoodensock.
Hey, what's up, Binx? Glad to be here, as always, and thank you. It's going to be interesting to have you as host and not Mr. Geek. So it'll be interesting today. But no, you can find me at twitch.tv/hardwoodensock, moderate conservative, just kind of enjoy having conversations with people who don't agree with me. Not necessarily like hardcore debate kind of stuff, just, good productive conversation showing that we're all not crazy. But, thanks again for having me and look forward to talking to all of y'all.
Thank you. We'll go to Thinking Zoomer.
Yes. Hello, everybody. I'm the Thinking Zoomer. You could find me on YouTube. There, I mostly talk about philosophy and stuff like that. And I myself politically am very libertarian left. I also have a background in debate. I have gone to national tournaments for Lincoln Douglas debate. So yeah, I'm very happy to be on the show. Very happy to be on. And I guess I'll hand it over to the next person. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to North Countryman next.
Howdy, I'm North Countryman, and this is my first panel as a brand new Twitch affiliate.
Oh, congrats.
At twitch.tv/North Countryman, because I used to teach political science, a lot of what I do is kind of lecture style, politics 101, political economy. That being said, everything I'm going to say on this panel tonight is going to be 100% correct, but I will say it in the most mumbled, incoherent, discombobulated, uncharismatic way possible. So we'll see how that nets out.
That's the North Countryman brand, and we love the North Countryman brand. All right, next we have ThaSwampFox.
Hi, y'all. I'm the ThaSwampFox, THA SwampFox, okay? Don't do the E. Don't spell it correctly or you can't find me. But yeah, I usually complain about politics on the internet and make a bunch of hot takes and lose followers. That's usually my thing. So nice to have me on. This is, I think, my first time on one of these that wasn't completely open. So hopefully I don't make myself look too silly. That's all I got for you.
Thank you very much. TheLeftistOwl.
Yes, I'm the Leftist Owl. I do mostly, these debate panels. I sometimes react to content. I also sometimes do media analysis or movie reactions. I also am doing a series this year called Voices, where I interview people of the LGBTQ community. So if you're LGBTQ, just hit me up and we could set up a time and place to do an interview.
Awesome, thank you. And finally, we have a last minute fill in, Binx_BB. Never heard of this guy before. How are you, Binx?
First of all, I need to start by this. Oh, sorry. First of all, how dare you, Hardwoodensock? How dare you? Hello everyone, my name is Mr. Binx. You can find me on twitch.tv /Binx_BB. Where you steal the moderator place. Anyway.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. We're going to be having one other guest come in later in a few more minutes, and we'll just have him do an intro when he gets here. Okay, so I'll just go over the rules, and after that, we'll get into the first topic. We'll have 3 different topics. We'll start with opening statements for each topic. Each panelist give a brief summation of your position, and after that, we'll go into a general discussion. If you find that you cannot speak due to over talking, please raise your hand. I will remember it with my photographic memory, and call on you when the opportunity presents itself. This should go without saying, no TOS. No, TOS. Lots of TOS. Be TOS. Be nice. Act like your mom is here. No misgendering, nothing like that. Just general civility as much as we can, you know. Look, this is a no-nonsense panel, okay? This is a Mr. Geek show. I'm a no-nonsense moderator. I don't want any straw manning. I don't want any gish galloping. I don't want any any of that, you're gonna feel the wrath, okay? And you know what the wrath is probably just me asking you to please stop. But you know, I may try to redirect the conversation or something like that if we feel like we're going too off base or something like that. All right, with all those big words out of the way, we're gonna get to it. We're gonna have 2 political questions tonight and then 1 palate cleanser after the first topic. Palate cleanser is kind of a silly topic, you know, while the custodial staff cleans the ring for the third topic. So with that, let's go into the first question, and we'll go with opening statements. Topic number 1. A gas leak from an underwater pipeline caused a fiery inferno last weekend to take place on the surface of the ocean. Are incidents like this major environmental concerns, or are a bunch of snowflakes losing their minds over one portal to hell opening? Okay, we're going to start with the leftist owl for an opening statement.
So I think generally these events tend to be harmful towards the environment. I'm not sure of the specific impact that this recent spillage has had, but as you recall, back in, I think in the 2010s, we had the BP oil leak that that flooded the ocean with oil and destroyed ecosystems and absolutely wrecked the lives of many, you know, seafaring creatures. So I'd say that the way these things affect the environment are inherently negative, and that we should seek to ameliorate these things happening by not only having specific guidelines in place for when these things happen for a quick response, but also ways in which we subsidize and start to break down the oil and gas industry.
All right, thank you. Let's go to ThaSwampFox.
All right, so I tend to agree. I don't know what the immediate impact is of this. It did just happen. I'm sure there are a bunch of fish that got burned in the water. But like he was saying, 2010, I lived in Pensacola at the time. My argument usually for the oil and gas industry when it comes to drilling is the jobs and cheaper gas, right? But at the same time, when you have spills like that, a lot of charter fishermen and everything else in the town that I lived in lost their jobs and their livelihood. So I'm kind of in the middle on this. I could go either way.
Okay, thank you. We'll go to Thinking Zoomer. Oh, you're muted on this.
Yes. So I think it's pretty obvious that this is bad. So this is obviously oil spill, and of course because of fire probably means that a lot of that oil is getting burned up. So perhaps not as harmful as what we saw in 2010. But there's a couple things of note here. First of all, right, even with that, there's still going to be a negative impact on the environment around it, which is bad. But I think what's probably a little bit more important here is also the fact that it kind of points to a broader problem of the fact that this is like the second time that this kind of thing has happened, like a decade, and still there's not really a good response in place. There's nothing we're really doing that much to prevent it. So, you know, it's a problem in the respect that it's like immediately impactful to the environment in a negative way, but also because it shows that we're not really ready to deal with these kinds of things when they happen, and we probably should be. So that's my 2 cents on this issue.
Thank you very much. RdZoid.
Well, first I'd like to say I guess I don't rate an introduction, but that's okay. I don't.
Oh
need
no,
it.
I'm sorry. Crap, it's the first time. It's the first time.
You're good.
Do your introduction. Do your introduction now.
All right. I'm RdZoid. I mostly play games, politics sometimes. That's it. My introductions are usually really short, so I don't really care. As far as the topic goes, is it a bad thing? Probably. It's probably not really good that shit leaks out and catches fire and burns in the ocean. I don't think there's going to be that many people that say it's a good thing. It's just kind of annoying when people point to this as being like, this is a problem with capitalism or like all this bullshit about how like any other system would prevent like pipes from breaking. So I guess it would really depend on what like where the discussion goes. As like because I don't. It's just obviously not a really good thing to have happen, and so yeah, I'll just kind of leave it to where the discussion leads.
Thank you. I owe you a beer after that. I was
You're
so
good. Don't worry about it.
hard. Okay. All right. You know what? And just so I don't mess it up again, FreshFace New Ideas has entered the chat. FreshFace, please intro yourself and also give. I know you like just got into the topics, but oh, you're muted on Discord. No, I'm not hearing you. You're still muted on Discord. Okay, we know. We'll figure it out, and we'll go to Hardwoodensock next, and then we'll go back to your FreshFace.
Yeah, I mean, I think environmentally, it is a disaster, you know. But I guess it's kind of like, you know, I believe that this was a Mexican oil company, so I don't really know how much power we would have in regulating this company. You know, if it was like BP, you know, if BP did it again, all right, well then we can point to, you know, United States not having enough oversight. But this is a Mexican oil company. I don't know how much, you know, oversight we have to prevent them and enforce our safety regulations upon them. You know, it's a tragedy. It shouldn't happen. My husky is howling. You know, but yeah, that it'll be interesting to see where it goes. I just don't think like it's necessarily our fault. You know, I would point to, you know, ask the Mexican government what's going on.
All right, thank you, Mr. Geek.
First of all, I would like to apologize on the behalf of the staff to RdZoid. This type of stuff would never happen on my show. After that, for the topic, I just want, yeah, I think no one here will disagree with the fact that, yeah, this is bad and everything. The question now is like, basically we're all sharing the same planet, and this will affect us one way or another, because like the last oil leak, like literally, like we're still feeling the effect like today. We're still like, I mean, there's still companies or still like charities basically like taking care of the damage. So yeah, this will affect us one way or another. So the question is going to be like, how do we deal with that? Like, what can, like basically, how do we sanction when stuff like that happen? How do we make sure that it doesn't happen in the future? Also, since no one mentioned it, this company was nationalized. So yeah, that could be a topic too. So yeah, great. Anyway.
Thank you, North Countryman.
Yeah, this company, Pemex, is a state-owned company. It was nationalized in 1930s, and under the socialist populist president Andrés Manuel López Obrador, who has this bizarre nostalgic dream of a socialist Mexico, he is under at no point will he ever even consider privatizing this company or any others. And I think this does illustrate that when you invest the state heavily into any kind of sector, in this case an oil sector, they're going to ignore things that are beneficial for that company for whatever is good for the country. It's no this kind of socialism is no different than the perverted form of capitalism known as corporatism that a lot of authoritarian governments exercise. And so the only way you can see a progress on this, is not going to full capitalism. We saw with BP how that causes problems. But when you have a privatized company that will seek profit motives, but you have a government with independent regulatory oversight commissions, as well as incentives so that these companies have a profit motive to go towards sustainable energy and safe energy.
Thank you very much. Fresh Faces, did you fix the audio issues? No? No, not yet. Okay. Well, yeah, we'll just go into general discussion, and maybe Danapo can help you out with the audio. Yep. So, anybody want to kick it off?
Yeah. So, North Countryman. So, what you're saying is that state-owned companies aren't always the best thing in the world, right?
Hang on. Yeah, no. When you do that, you inevitably mix up the political motive, i.e., in other words, make a company do well because it's supposedly good for the country, as opposed to the profit motive. This is just this is a modern form of mercantilism that Adam Smith railed against when he was writing his original Wealth of Nations. I have Wealth of Nations. Why did I forget the name? Yeah, focusing on invisible hand and let the markets decide is the premise we should start with. I'm not advocating for a pure capitalist, unfettered, no regulation industry. Obviously, that's going to cause problems, but letting companies go towards that profit motive is better.
No, I would agree with
than
you.
it needed to be.
No, I agree with you. I think like it's just, how do we stop this from happening in Mexico? Like I think we had our own wake up call when BP had their whole oil spill with the Deepwater Horizon incident. But I think like we put a lot tougher regulations on oil rigs and whatnot. So we kind of solved that issue, but I don't know how we impose that on state-owned companies that aren't in our country.
Oh, your audio is North.
No.
Are you muted? Yeah, you're muted, North.
Hey, yeah, I'm muted. What was I saying? Yeah, so the only way the U.S. could try to impose any kind of anything over Mexico would be as if there was some sort of agreement we had with them over, say, the Gulf or any kind of trade deal. But even then, it would be limited to whatever just Mexico wants to go along with. And with AMLO in charge, I don't think they're going to even consider changing up those companies, because it would be seen as the state is not this perfect, wonderful thing. And AMLO, if you follow Mexican politics, is not really too keen on doing things that go against his image. But AMLO's not the topic today.
I mean, what we could do, but this is just a suggestion, is that we could have like some kind of deal. And since it's about like ecology, and stuff like that, it could be called something like, I don't know, the Green Deal. And since it's kind of new, just free. No. Okay. No, for real. I think trying to sanction either companies or like even state or country-run companies when it comes to incident like this, and like making sure that first of all, making sure that they respect norm, and that like platform that can have like oil platform and stuff like that could potentially have accident that could lead to like ecological catastrophe would be like, first of all, more regulated, and on top of that, like sanctioning them if they don't respect these norms could be a beginning.
Well, what so because they're based on what I read, they didn't know what the exact cause was. So let's assume that there was just like something went wrong. Like they crossed all their T's and dotted all that, like everything, they followed all the regulations that they had in place, and yet there was still something that went wrong. What else would we demand of them to make sure something like this doesn't happen again?
Well, chances are, like if it was like a pipe rupture, the pipe might not have been maintained correctly. Obviously this is all speculation, because they haven't diagnosed the exact cause of it yet.
Right.
But if the pipe's like deteriorating, like all rusted out and whatnot, it maybe you make a regulation that you have to inspect the pipes more.
Well, right, but like I think even any company in charge of something like this doesn't want it to happen. So but that, like, my question was, like, let's say they did follow all that, and like based on their knowledge, there wasn't anything that should have gone wrong, because nothing's perfect, and there's not going to be like any new rule that can, like, oh, we legislated or we sanctioned, like, pipes can't break anymore, so like stuff like that's never going to happen. So what are we going to make them do that they're not already doing already?
I don't know if I
could potentially jump up.
go ahead.
In the case of Pemex, because it's a state-owned company, any kind of regulation you put in there, there's inherently going to be a conflict of interest between the regulator and the state, because the state owns the company. Whoa, what's that sound?
Someone's echoing.
That might be me.
Okay. Continue, North.
Real quick, fresh face,
Yeah,
new ideas.
conflict of interest bad.
I don't know if-
Okay.
Well, I think one step towards alleviating this type of situation is having less oil and gas pipelines. If we start to subsidize oil companies and start investing in green energy, then we can start to decrease the amount of oil pipelines that are bound to burst.
Okay, but how are you going to enforce that in Mexico?
I'm not sure. I'm talking mainly within the U.S.
Okay, well, I think that an observation should be made here, which is that I know most of us are Americans anyway, but I think, like, we don't necessarily just have to talk about from the perspective of what America can do. We could also talk about, like, what Mexico can do. The question isn't, like, just what could America do about it. So I feel like that could help us with this conversation a bit more.
Well, the prescription between the U.S. and Mexico is going to be far different. Like, people in America can, like, we can afford a lot more expensive programs than.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not
Yes,
very
I am so
familiar
sorry.
with-
I don't know what happened.
Yeah, that
I'm
was a
not
weird
very
one.
familiar with how other countries deal with that type of stuff, so I don't feel comfortable weighing in on what they should do or could do.
Okay, real quick before we continue, Fresh Face, can you kind of shout yourself out and kind of give your intro to the topic, if you have one?
We're doing the ocean being on fire, right?
Correct. The portal to hell.
That's the topic. Okay. So my name is David. I go by FreshFacesNewIdeas. I am a Sockdown political streamer. I usually stream every day during the week, sometime between mostly 1 p.m. EST, but sometimes on at 4 p.m. It generally changes. I have my my Discord. Usually, I'll tell you when, or if you follow me on Twitter at FacesNewIdeas. As for the ocean being on fire, I know this one appears to be a specific Mexican country, but it is emblematic of how we need to shift to a source of energy that is not going to light water on fire, because generally that is not something that's good, and it is bad. So I haven't looked into a lot of what's happening. I just saw it, the pictures of it, and obviously it looks like Godzilla's about to come out. But yeah, we have a lot of issues, and especially for these oil companies that get all these subsidies just for America. And we've known for what is it, since the 70s or the 80s, they've known that they were going to screw all this stuff up. We need to just start doing it, just because, I mean, the planet's on fire, and literally the water is on fire.
Yeah, and Zimmer, you were saying,
Yes. So I actually want to go back to something that RdZoid said a little bit ago about what would we do if there was really kind of nothing that had really gone wrong. And I think then when it comes to that, that's kind of it's a hard question, because if they had done nothing wrong, they've kind of done nothing wrong, But the other issue with the whole conversation we're having here is that there hasn't really been any identified cause of this. So I think obviously the first step that at least the company needs to be doing is, investigation or whatever kind of boards they have to investigate that kind of stuff. I'm not familiar with how they do that in Mexico. I'm sure there's some mechanism somewhere. But but until then, I feel like the question, well, what if they hadn't done much? It's not very worthwhile to that situation, but if they hadn't done anything wrong, then I think that might just be to like what some of the other guys here were saying, that maybe we should try to think about getting rid of fossil fuels, you know, because like that's the kind of fuel that's causing this sort of thing. So that's just what I wanted to add here.
Yeah, to jump back on that too.
So something I don't know if somebody else is gonna go.
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
A lot of the other thing is with these oil leaks, it takes so long to solve them, even just on the surface. That like, even when we get it like kind of okay, there's still a lot of damage done, and there's still issues currently happening that we have to contest with. Like the BP oil spills and stuff, they're still going on. So this is not like the damage from is still continuous. So it just extends it more.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I wanted to go back to what RdZoid said too. I don't believe in the just like shit happens. I think that like there's a reason for it, and usually it's like people not basically trying to cut corner, you know, like trying to save money on like inspecting like the hardest part of difficult part to access and to inspect. But at this point we don't know. Let's say that like it happened, let's say that like it's something like they did everything right and something still happens. We need to learn from this and make sure that it doesn't happen again, obviously. Like FreshFace said, switching to other sources. But yeah, I don't believe that the solution can be country to country, basically. Again, we share the same planet, and something that will like affect like Mexico will also affect the US, basically. Like oil will travel, like it will follow like water flow and everything. The gas that was emitted from like all this fuel burning will also affect us. So yeah, this is something that we need to take care and make sure that, and for that we need to sit on the same table. I think that switching source is going to be a solution like long term, but this is not something like not every country can switch to nuclear.
Yeah, and in the article provided,
the-
they mentioned that Pemex has like a long list of screw ups as far as the company itself goes, with hurting, injuring, whatever. But I mean, I think the problem is nobody's doing PMCS, preventative maintenance checks and services, and that's probably why this happened. I'm sure they're going to find that out, but once again, this is a nationalized, state-run company, so it'll probably find a way to make it not come with anything. They're going to basically say, oh yeah, everything was fine. You know, a big whale ran into the pipe and made it break or something. Because that's usually what they do, is they just make up fairy tale excuses for things.
Real quick, sorry to cut FreshFace.
The solution to that would be
FreshFace, there's a little problem with your audio. Like a big noise. Just wanted to say for you.
Oh, that's my laptop. I can't. It's it makes a lot of noise.
There's a little feedback. If you can mute when you're not talking, that would be good, and then I think we could probably handle it.
Okay, yeah. All right, I could do that.
Sorry to cut you. Go ahead.
For the way to solve the issue of them, kind of not dealing with the issues, is we have to find them enough that it's going to hurt them. This is kind of like the issues in California, and what's happening in Texas is like PG&E, when they don't bury their wires and then they start the forest fires, you don't find them enough to make it not profitable for them to not deal with the problem. So when we find out what the issue is, we have to make sure that the companies face actual financial issues before they end up with so they actually are incentivized to deal with the problems. Because if there's no financial impact on this, they're just going to say, fuck it, I don't care.
The problem with that, though, is that Pemex is a state-owned company. The state has a disincentive to want to what's the word I'm looking for? Fine it. And so the idea of like moving away from oil, where it's kind of tied up with the national identity, in this case of Mexico, it's probably a good idea. And we see that there are some private companies that are recognizing the value of investing in green energy, and that's good that they're doing it. That needs to be encouraged.
Well, I think the solution here then is that things shouldn't be state-owned.
I don't know. It will still happen. Like company will still have an incentive to like cut corners and everything to try to save money. Like it's different type of problem basically, but it will still lead to a problem at the end of the day.
Can I push something back on to what RdZoid said? Texas's grid is entirely privatized. They can't handle the heat or the cold.
Okay.
I mean, so you do need some state oversight on these things. They can't just be not state.
So there aren't any sections of the power grid that go out in state-controlled areas when it gets too cold or hot.
There aren't, but I'm saying that we've got
Chicago?
other states where.
Or New York.
Yeah, I know New York had.
California gets their grid shut down like twice a week.
It seems so weird that you would be like, well, look at Texas. Like when these issues happen other places, and like I get for maybe the heat because Texas is a southern state, but like when you get like a once in a century storm or whatever, when that cold front came through and wiped them out that time, that just seems like I don't know if we should be basing our stuff off of like one-time occurrences.
There's also the argument that with the climate changing, that those types of storms are going to be more prevalent, and that they should invest more towards their infrastructure so their infrastructure can support something like that.
So what I was saying is, I don't know if this is the point LeftistOwl was getting at, but RdZoid, I feel like you're kind of missing the point there. I feel like the idea is that like the privately owned companies aren't doing better than what state owned. Like that the burden of proof is just like right there. I'm not too sure if that's what you're saying, LeftistOwl, but I kind of get the feeling that that's what it was. Am I right about that?
Sorry, say that again.
Well, sorry.
I'm not
that.
Sorry.
The point isn't that the state-run companies are better than the privately run companies. The point is they're doing just the same, so there's not really an advantage to having a privately owned one, or at least to my knowledge.
It's not just that. It's also the fact that that there are specific things that you can look at in Texas history that shows that having the grid be privately owned led to them not ameliorating a lot of the issues that their grid has. So having a state-run one might be better because you could get you could have more people that have more say in how the grid is run. And sure, in other state-run areas, power grids go down, but Texas was a specific example in which their infrastructure was at a point that it fell to the once in a lifetime storm or whatever. It's you have to look at it relative to what happens in the area, and sometimes in California and New York you have these extreme cases, whereas in Texas this could have this might have happened under different circumstances other than the once in a lifetime snowstorm or whatever.
Right.
Well, so you were saying that there wasn't any advantage to like the privatized power grid in Texas. That's not true. They pay 13% lower than the average national average than for their energy. Of course, that's a clear advantage. It's cheaper for them.
But if that advantage comes at the cost of the infrastructure itself being weakened or in some way managed poorly, then I don't care. Like if you're gonna have a shitty infrastructure, even and you're paying less for it, then I see a benefit in paying more to get it to be better. Like.
Okay, and these other places are paying more and the same stuff happens. I don't know what your point is.
Well, okay. I think LeftistOwl, you said that there were some issues that the privatized grid in Texas caused. So I'm not saying I disagree, but I'm wondering, could you just elaborate on some of like what those were? Like if you can.
I'd have to look them up to bring up specific examples because I don't really remember all that well. But from what I heard around the time that it was happening, that there were lots of there were previous like motions to improve the grid, and that could have prevented what had happened. But since it was privately owned, they didn't give a shit. They didn't do it. They tossed those motions out and didn't end up fixing the grid. And I think having a state managed one might avoid something like that. I'm not saying it will. I'm not saying 100%, but from what we've seen, that seems to be the case. That state operated grids tend to have these motions pass, or at least have some sort of say in how the grid is run, rather than just privately owned a group of people just like deciding on whatever's profitable.
Isn't the Colonial Pipeline ran from the state?
Oh, Colonial
I'm not sure.
private.
Is that a private company?
Colonial is private. That's why the blaming the Biden administration for the hack didn't make sense.
And then like the EPA, right? Like turning a river a different color, that was state run, right? The Environmental Protection Agency, part of the federal government.
So I'm not saying what.
I mean, right now we're talking about right now with the the water being on fire, right? Right. I mean, that's a state-run company. I don't know how we're turning this into like a privatization versus nationalism thing, because obviously, more recently, nationalism is failing.
Yeah, and there's always value in criticizing that and saying we need to do better, but I'm not sure how it got derailed into privatization versus nationalization, but
I just made a joke that it was just a case of things why things should be privatized.
Yeah, I think it was because North Countryman's proposal is that privatization would be better, and I mean it's relevant if we're going to talk about
privatization
or some privatization. Could you?
I'm not going full, whatever it's called. I'm not advocating full, anarcho-capitalism. I'm just saying, free things up, but there should be oversight and regulations.
Well, I think in this case, you actually could argue that if this were a private company, like a private international corporation that had this happen to them, they would be more susceptible to, like, let's say the U.S., like, I don't know, doing something like some sort of sanction or fine or something like that, as opposed to just the Mexican government.
Exactly. I feel like holding people accountable is kind of very important when these incidents do happen, and when it is like a state run company, I feel like it's very difficult to hold them accountable. Whereas if it's a private company with regulations, the government could come in and basically fine them to hell, because they weren't following the regulations. Whereas if it's a fully privatized company with no oversight, it's a lot more difficult to hold them accountable because they're not necessarily breaking any laws. So I think like a blended mix is probably the best, kind of like North Countryman said, but definitely not a fully state-owned company.
Right.
Is there a specific state-run oil organization that you guys are like happy with that you think has not failed?
Who's in this area? I don't know.
I think that's your answer.
I don't even know if I could name that many state-owned oil.
I don't think I can name.
Yeah, because they all fail. That's why.
Real quick,
Termix, of course.
how is a company?
Russia's stuff is nationalized.
Didn't Norway have nationalized oil that they got rich off of?
That sounds
One
right,
of the
but I'd have to double
Scandinavian
check.
It's somewhere up there.
Yep. Yeah, Scandinavia, and one of their oil things are called trolls, and so there's video of a Norway's prime minister saying Norway has trolls, which, if you take that out of context, is hilarious.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Real quick,
Yeah,
how is a company?
Russia's doing good with state-run oil?
It's started gate.
How is a private company more susceptible to sanction than a country?
Well, because like a state-run organization like this they're just kind of beholden to like the state, and we all kind of know how Mexico's state is at the moment. It's not really like the most transparent thing in the world right now. So I just think if it were,
You can still apply sanctions.
Like BP got fined a lot, right? And they were paying basically charter fishermen and people's paychecks a couple of years while this all went down, while they were doing cleanup and everything else. I mean, I think it's harder to hold a state. What do? You have the UN sanction that? I mean, I feel like that's a little bit harder than your government saying you guys effed up. Now you're going to get sued by everyone.
There's a lot more blowback to sanctioning a country than there is to just a company, even if it's a multinational company. Plus, if it's a multinational company, it's likely operating within, say, the United States, and so we can punish it within the United States. But that's just a technical thing, so not super sexy for a Twitch panel.
Yeah, but what kind of blowback? Like, for instance, that would apply in the case of sanctioning a country. Doesn't apply. That doesn't apply to a private company.
Usually, when a country puts, for example, say tariffs or even a sanction on another country, they can then retaliate. So when the United States put Section 301 tariffs on steel coming out of Canada and Mexico, they retaliated by putting major tariffs on U.S. goods. And so punishing, say, Mexico for this, Mexico could then do the same, punish U.S. goods in retaliation.
Yeah.
Sorry, you asked me about something that I literally study and do as my day job, so I'm gonna nerd out just a little bit.
Yeah, go ahead. But yeah, I don't know. For me, it goes back to to the first idea of like, we need to. I mean, I know it sounds like I'm going to sing like Imagine from John Lennon, but by John Lennon. But like, yeah, we need to have like countries sitting on a table and making sure that this shit happen, and if it happens, like applying sanction that even if like Mexico would retaliate, it would be like a drop in the ocean.
I don't know if it'd be a drop in the ocean. We've seen tariffs be kind of effective at hurting specific people if it's targeted enough. So it's I think the bigger issue is we need to simply invest in better sources of energy that are less likely to catch oceans on fire.
Yeah, it could be
So
possible.
that solution
We
I was
have,
going to
Like what better source that
Well,
exists right now?
there's like, because there's always trade-offs, but like, of course there's renewable energy that we can invest in, but like that has a trade-off too, because like in order to make solar panels you have to mine the parts for it, and then there's all the pollution and shit that comes from just mining the raw material for that. So it's like I'm not saying don't do it, but it's like you're trading one thing for another.
we do windmill farms because we can put those in the ocean. We're currently building one off of Massachusetts. They just the Biden administration just allowed one to be built, and that can produce like 10 to 100 times more energy than the solar farms do. So we have this space to build these. So maybe we put those in the ocean instead of having relying less on solar energy.
What happens when there's no wind? Like there's no wind that day? Do people just have to turn the lights off?
Well, that's why you put them in the ocean where it's constantly.
Well, because it would also lower the amount. Like it's like it would still help, but it wouldn't completely.
Well, that's
just
the only serious thing to go is nuclear, right? That's probably the only thing.
I was gonna say
people grid, right? And those things don't have to look like ugly wind turbines out in the ocean, right? And setting on fire out in the ocean and dropping a bunch of chemical.
All right, Zoomer.
Yeah, I was gonna say people don't like to hear it, but nuclear is a good idea. And also it's probably not as completely dangerous as a lot of people are thinking. Because like there are actually some new interesting like ideas on the horizon, like using thorium for reactions instead of uranium, which could be a lot cleaner and stuff. Although, that's going to require a lot of investment and, to like develop new nuclear reactors with that stuff, which I think we should do, which I think that's a good solution to like all of this if we don't want, little portals to hell being created in the ocean.
Yeah, and that's the unfortunate thing is that we've let oil and gas companies basically run how we structure our infrastructure for the longest time, and we never invested in any sort of green solution up until like a couple decades ago maybe, and even then our efforts are minimal at best. We need to have a complete overhaul where we subsidize these oil and gas companies and start converting our infrastructure into whatever green energy we can, whether it be nuclear, solar, wind. And we how we establish that, I'm not sure because our system is fucked.
If I can just
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, if I can, I'm very happy to hear a pro-nuclear crowd, because I find there's a lot of a bit of a cult around wind and solar. How people think if you put some solar panels or windmills, it's going to save everything. But similar to what I think it was SwampFox was saying, was what happens with the wind isn't blowing or the sun's not shining. Well, there's a there's a hint of truth to that, in that wind and solar are they're non-dispatchable. So when you have, say, let's say we're in July right now, people come home, they immediately turn their AC on. That puts a massive load on the electric grid. And right now, what companies can do is they can turn on usually a natural gas company, and they could add in a bit more energy to the load, and so you don't end up with brownouts. Nuclear.
Also, sorry.
Yeah, I'm finishing up. Nuclear, biofuels, things like that can be dispatchable, which is good. And if we want to stick renewable energy, we have to have a dispatchable thing, which wind and solar just can't do that.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say, like, the oil and gas companies, they don't determine what policy is used. The reason why they got so big is because of the demand that people need. Like, oil and gas was just the most effective energy source for so long, and it was just the easiest to come by. So of course we were going to use it. But there was a stat that I heard or read, I don't know, I found it somewhere. It was like, I think it was Germany doubled the the hardware for solar and wind, but they ended up with less energy production than before they did that. So it's like there's still, like, you still need sunny areas, you still need windy areas to build these things. So it's not like a complete, like, oh, let's just build them and we'll be able to, like, just outright replace this energy. It's like, well, like, it'll help, but it turns out like you can build more, but it doesn't equal more energy.
Well, the thing is that we knew about climate change, I think back in the 60s, I believe, because a gas company researched the effects of global warming and climate change, and you know what they did with that information? Fuck all. They were like, no, we're just gonna keep the infrastructure we have now. So we knew of climate change way back when, and the reason why no one's done anything is because of the gas companies that were like, nope.
So they were the ones in charge of. They were the ones in charge of writing laws.
Do you not know how lobbying works?
The only way you
Oh,
can.
okay. Okay. So we're gonna get into a discussion of lobbying, eh?
Mm-hmm.
No, but that's to answer your question. That's part of how
That's not how it works.
They buried the information and then they lobbied. They literally, wasn't Exxon just on camera saying we call Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema every week to make sure that they're not passing things that are going to hurt us?
Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah.
It was
That's
like
a good
literally this week, or last week. I forget which incriminating Joe Manchin clip comes out every week. Yeah, that's partly how it works. They had the data and they buried it, and then they paid politicians not to invest in other sources of energy.
Yeah, but then also remember, like, that they could influence a lot of the discussion around this with, pouring absolute crap loads of cash on stuff. I actually think it was ExxonMobil that originally got, like, the ball rolling on the climate change is not real conspiracy theories. Like in the early 2000s.
Weren't they the ones that actually discovered climate change?
Yeah.
Weren't they the ones funding the research?
Yeah, ironically enough, they're the ones who are like, no, it's not real, man. Don't worry about it. You're cool. You don't have to think about anything. Just trust what we're doing, man. And
You guys know when this study came out?
The 70s or 80s, I think.
it was the 70s, I think.
Okay. There's a lot going on with oil and gas back in that time frame, especially with Iran and other things, right? And OPEC.
Yeah, and that's the unfortunate thing is that we could have gotten the ball rolling on a lot of these green initiatives, but oil and gas was just like, nope, fuck them.
Well, a lot of it goes back to like the return on investment, right? That's the reason why nuclear isn't like growing more and more prominent, right? Because it takes too long to get that money back that you're initially putting out, right?
Well, really, it's because they just every time nuclear gets back in the forefront, people make Chernobyl documentaries and a bunch of things to try to scare the shit out of people.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because people don't realize that the whole disaster happened because of information suppression. Like it was just the classic case of the Russian government being too proud to admit they made a mistake. And so they had people that didn't know what they were doing in a facility that was just basically a ticking time bomb. And people don't really realize that. They just think it was just nuclear in general that did this. But no, it was...
Yeah, that's completely true.
Well, yeah.
So real quick.
Oh yeah.
Real quick regarding lobbying, in 2020, Chevron and Exxon Mobil shelled out some 39 million US dollars for just the Republican Party, and then 7 million to the Democratic Party. Their 2020 profits were Chevron was 94 billion and Exxon was 181 billion. If lobbying was as powerful as you say it is, how come they're not spending more? That's probably like not even 1% of their profits.
Well, first off, that's literally how it works. So the way our system works is the first time they pay you, and you do something for them and they make a profit, they know how much they can give you to make their profit continue at that rate. It's the same thing when you look at people who gave money to Paul Ryan after the tax cut. It's such a small percentage of the money that they have to give you because they know they don't need to spend more to buy them off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's completely true. It's like
Not adjusted with inflation or anything.
I mean, it's
I mean,
like
if somebody bought off a politician in like 1980, right, for
Oh, he was using
$500, and now it's 2020. I don't know. I would take the same amount.
Yeah, because
it's like the free market, you know. They set a price for the politicians, then I mean that's what it is. You don't need to pay more.
Yeah, it couldn't be like they're just lobbying for politicians that happen to go in interests that benefit them, and not like just outright buying them like you're accusing them of doing.
Well, it could be. Sorry, yeah.
When I say buying, that's kind of how I refer to it as lobby. Like the interest they're doing for them is lobbying, and the way they do that is they pay the politicians all this money. So it's kind of like buying them, yeah.
So like if there was an energy bill, you're saying if these companies didn't lobby, they would vote the other way.
Joe Manchin ran on under the Obama administration when he ran for Senate. His one of his campaign ads was shooting the Obama administration's carbon tax bill. So yeah, I would say that that has something to do with it.
Okay, does it have anything to do? He's from West Virginia, right?
Yeah, but it's I'm talking about the.
Does it have anything to do with his state's policies on?
Yeah, I'm sure. Look,
and how carbon tax would affect it?
Part of it.
Okay, but like, it's not like it has to be one or the other.
It can be multiple things.
Yeah, like okay, dude, it's complicated, you know. Like it's not just necessarily that it's like like they show up to the politician's office, put like a fat stack of money on their desk and are like, okay, you're gonna support this bill and this bill, and you're not gonna vote for this one and this one and this one. That's not how it works, Like it's a little bit complicated, Sometimes, they'll support politicians with ideas they like and not those with those, they don't like. And if you give them enough money, then maybe you could get them to like maybe move over on this one. Or if you have a lot of money, you could like have a lot of ads for this, which moves a lot of politicians like on this party to vote for this or not vote for this, Like it's complicated. It's not just like.
Well, then say it's complicated. Don't frame it in a way in which you're basically saying that the energy companies are actually like writing the word for word laws. That's what a lot of people do.
Never said
that. There are people who say that, and depending on which.
Yeah, we were exaggerating a little bit. You might.
Well, they're a lobbyist for green energy too, right?
Yeah, true.
They don't have the type of money.
Well, true, but they
You
don't
don't
have
think
like, billions of dollars.
You really don't. You don't think that?
You think that green energy companies would have the same type of cash to throw around as a multinational oil company that's been around for 100 years?
They've got a lot of companies that support that.
You just said it doesn't take much cash anyway, so why does it matter?
Yeah, there's a set price.
It doesn't take much cash for them because
So
they
you just
have
pay $1 more, $1 more dollar, and then you get it.
So then if it's free market, how come they won't demand more money? They know they have more money. Why won't they demand more money?
All right, first off, we've gone very far from the point. Now we're on lobbying, and I think that might have been my fault. But they don't need the money. They have exactly what they need for their campaign, and they know that as long as they talk to these lobbyists to get their lobby money, the money's not going to go to their competitor to pay for those bills. They're just worried about it going to their competitor, and that's why they'll do it. Saying that it's not like we have the same. We're not playing on even playing fields. I can't get the same influence that which Koch brother is alive? Charlie. I don't have the same influence that he does, even if we were in the same area and had the same representative. So I need to, so like me trying to get into a conversation versus somebody who can throw around $100 million is not an equivalent thing. So if you have the money to pay for these politicians and put into their donations, you can influence policy in a way that somebody like me can't. And it is, and on the other hand, it is actually true. There is bills where the lobbyists will word for word write them and hand them to the lawmakers. This is something we've seen in the past. I'm not like, I would have to look up exactly which examples they are. I want to say it had to do with Obamacare, but I can't remember which bills exactly. But this is not something that's just made up out of whole cloth that the lobbyists have no influence on things.
Well, I'm not saying they don't have any influence. It's like if there was some bill that was about to be passed that affected you a lot, don't you think you should have some say into like what goes into it?
Oh, okay, wait, I gotta a couple things here. So first of all, with that thing, yeah, I mean you should have some say, but what we're saying is that could be a little hard to have. But second, so you're not saying it's not totally not a problem, but what exactly is your claim about lobbying? What are you trying to get at?
I don't think, well, because a lot of people blame lobbying, or they view lobbying as this these companies are sponsoring these politicians and just basically just being the ones controlling the strings and determining what the words on these bills are. But I just don't think that's the case. I just think they'll invest, so to speak, into politicians that have policies that benefit them. So they're like, oh, I kind of want that politician to be, I'd rather have that politician than the other guy because I think it would benefit my industry. I think that's as far as it goes.
What about politicians who come in and completely change their mind after they start meeting with lobbyists and receive cash?
Do you have an example?
This is cinema.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd have to look at I can't.
I mean, if you
for a specific situation like that, I can't just.
You look at the way the being in power and being we know this I know this is not the topic, but knowing the power the lobbyists have, we've seen it over and over again. It's part of the reason why we have done so little on gun control, even though there are certain parts of it that are wildly popular because of things like the NRA's lobby. And it's been said like that. There are Republicans who will brag about how well they're voting with the NRAs. It's things like that. We've seen this with different sectors. This is so lobbying absolutely has an effect. And there are cases, like I've said, where they will literally write the laws for them.
Well, let's say that is true. Let's say she was for the one position and then got lobbied and changed her mind. Okay, do we know what specifically they were talking about? Let's say there was some effect of a bill that was going to go through. So this company comes to her and they're like, look, there's I don't think a lot of people realize this, but this could impact your state very harshly. And it kind of goes into kind of what's politically profitable for senators and things like that, if something could affect their state in a really negative way. But if a company, I don't view it as just absolutely bad. If a company comes to you and is like, look, there could be a lot of negative repercussions that affect your state should something like this go through.
I would ask this question: what's wrong with a lawmaker changing their minds?
I don't know.
Especially when they have new information. When did that become a bad thing?
I'm not saying that's a bad thing in any way, shape, or form. And I'm also not saying all lobbying is bad, because a lot of times there's people who lobby. That's part of how we get things like the Sunrise Movement. When they lobby, it's when they do their die-ins or whatever else they do when they go talk to people. That's a form of lobbying. The issue I have is when it comes to campaign donations. That's a totally different thing. And look, if you have data that proves that your previous position is wrong, I'm totally okay with that. That's one of the main beliefs that I have is if you get conflicting data, you should change your mind, because I believe the more data you have, the better. So it's different than But we can even look at lobbying as a data point, where we can say X person received plus dollars and now they're voting against this, and it does hurt their constituents in some cases, and then they don't care because as long as they have their power, that's why there are bills that are incredibly unpopular that is still passed all the time, and then the politicians remain in power for that.
And it's not just the lobbying that happens as well. There's also manufacturing consent that you have to consider. like when Uber basically propagandized to their workers about one of the propositions in California, and got them to vote against their interests, because the bill would have given them rights as employees and given them benefits. But Uber framed it in a way that said, oh, well, if this law passes, you won't have flexible hours anymore and this, that, or the other. When in reality, Uber's the one that structures themselves as they do. The law had nothing to do with that. It just said, hey, you should give your employees these benefits and these certain things because they're your employees. And so Uber was just like had this huge campaign to convince that their employees that they would be restricted due to this law, and got them to either to vote against it or get what's I'm trying to think of the word, get like their politicians, their local politicians to vote down the law.
Okay, well,
Wouldn't it killed Uber in their area? That's why they didn't vote for it. And I mean, even so, like, what are we supposed to do about that, right? Like, you're supposed to propagandize something that you want done, right? They do it all the time. That's why the left likes socialism now, because they've made it appealing to that base, you know, and the right likes, you know, freedom. You know, it's weird. But
if I can jump off of this for if I can jump off this just for an informational point, we mentioned gun control a little earlier. The NRA, in terms of money, is not the major financial contributor to Congress, but what they do in their biggest lobbying tool is activating their very enthusiastic base, who then call lawmakers. So a significant part of lobbying is not just, you know, campaign donations. It's a lot of the ads that go out. It's letting people in any kind of network say, call your congressman and tell them to vote no on this or yes on this. And at that point, we're not really getting into the financial part of it. Now it's, okay, well, now you've got constituents calling a legislator saying, I would like you to vote this way. And, you know, thing about democracy is that the people can be incorrect, but they can't be wrong. You know, we got to go the way of the people, even if they are complete idiots. Which I have more thoughts on that, but that's not the topic.
We could go forever on people being idiots.
That's the problem I'm proposing, though, is that the companies have such huge sway in how they can reach people. They have such a big influence in media and marketing and stuff like that they can manufacture consent. They can give people specific bits of information and influence their decision in what laws pass and what laws their Congress people vote on.
They do that for presidential elections too. I mean, that's literally the way of the world.
All right.
Yeah, unfortunately, you can't.
So in your example, in regards to Uber, right? About the proposition that they were threatening, like, oh, you're going to lose all your, you know, flexibility and whatnot. Would it be reasonable to say that maybe it wasn't propaganda, that even like if that you know, proposition was passed, right? What if the company changes their policy and then makes them work, you know, 9 to 5 or, you know, first, second, third shift, you know? So maybe they would lose their freedom.
I would say that's a problem with the company and not the proposition. If the proposition doesn't specifically state that they have to work 9 to 5.
Okay, but yeah, the proposition itself doesn't state that, but it is a byproduct of the proposition, right? Because then they're going to have to change their policies, right? Well, because then they're going to be incentivized to change their policies.
But that's the thing. But that's the thing, is that there's a difference between the proposition saying that they would have to change their policies to work 9 to 5 and Uber changing their policies to make that happen.
Okay.
There's a distinct difference there.
Okay, but what's the problem with Uber saying, you know, if this is going to be the result, right? Like, this is what's going to change. Like, what's wrong with that? Like, a company's going to change their policy.
All right, can I take this one?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, like, I think the broader point here is that the problem with this is it's like the money, man. Like you could see that there's a large amount of money that goes into politics. There's a large amount of money that goes into media, which shapes people's opinions in certain ways. And the problem, I mean, like you could say like, oh, what's the problem with this? You know, what's the problem if somebody changes their mind? But the problem is that there's fat stacks driving this kind of thing. That the amount of influence that corporations have in society is probably not good. And that, you know, it changes the way that things work, and we need to be aware of that and understand that. I think that's kind of the overall point here.
And to address your your specific point, Uber saying we're going to change our policies if this passes, is them essentially extorting their labor force into opposing the bill.
How much money is too much money to actually exercise democracy? Democratic. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, North.
How much money what's the cutoff at which point we say, okay, you're not allowed to actually advocate for your interests? At what point do you have too much money and we say, know what, I don't care about your interests, I don't care about your free speech rights, don't care. You don't get to advocate it anymore.
What do you mean?
Well, you said
a cap on lobbying. Like a cap and donation type of thing.
I think money
not just donations, I mean the media, and putting money into the media, because technically that is free speech.
Knocking on doors is considered lobbying.
Yeah. At what point is the company too big and you say, nope, you're not allowed to advocate for your own interests?
I'd say we implement a law in which a company can't fund campaigns and donate money, whereas individuals can.
Public finance.
I would probably agree.
Just say that politicians don't accept money from corporations. There you go.
Exactly.
I mean, I don't think it's the company's fault that politicians are accepting their money and you know, right?
You know what? I will acknowledge though, like there is a little, you know, it can get a little fuzzy. Like one situation you could imagine, like if this happened, which I mean, I still think it'd be great to just say like no more corporation money, like individuals, cool, corporate, no. Like you could have things where like, you know, you have like a group of employees from a company who work on some materials, you know, from to work on this one politician's campaign, and then they just happen to get a bonus, and like that could be a little bit of a nuance. You know, like it's hard, right? Because the money's will still be there, but still, I do think it's a good idea, you know, to just say like no more corporation money. But yeah, I mean,
what you just described was called a political action committee.
Yeah, they're right. There's there are politicians who do that. There's a lot of progressive candidates who run on no corporate PAC money. That would be a way to do it. Because that gives you a better idea of who's funding them. That's how you can see, like, because they have to disclose where their money comes from. And if they're not disclosing it from like dark money or PACs and stuff, then you know they're being publicly financed, which means they have grassroots operations. Which is honestly what we saw. Like we've seen it we've seen it work on a local, and we almost saw it work on a presidential level. But you know, other factors wasn't the money wasn't the issue. We saw Bernie broke like every fundraising record right up till about the bottom. And then the wheels fell off, but that's a totally different story. But he was almost entirely grassroots. He was pretty much all grassroots. There's a politician, my current congressman, ran on no PAC money. There's plenty of people who are running on it. It is a possibility to do it because when you have less time spent talking to these corporations, because politicians admit, they're like, look, we spend like 70 or 80% of our time on the phone eliciting donations from corporations. Yeah. They're spending the time instead going to town halls, talking to the people, reaching out to people, so they're actually more in touch with their constituents, and they have a better idea of what we want.
Yeah, well, I think
let's have everyone finish up, and then we'll go into closing.
Yeah, so like bring home what the whole like point here is. You know, lobbying, it's an important thing to understand, and it's definitely a part of the reason why we haven't seen such a quick development to, you know, green energy, because there's been a lot of lobbying to kind of artificially keep like, you know, fossil fuel industries alive. And from that, you know, because like a lot of what we talked about just now is a little bit unrelated to topic, you know, transitioning to green energy would be a good idea if we want to prevent like things like that we've seen. And we should really consider that, especially after this, you know, because I mean, like, that's how we solve things like this ultimately. So, you know, that's kind of what I have to say. Thanks. I'll pass on to the next person.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. We're going to go into closing statements, just general and final thoughts. North Countryman?
So this is what happens when you have a panel composed of people who are so smart and handsome. We all just end up agreeing with each other. When you inherently link up politics with business, the result is bad. When you let businesses just run rampant, the result is bad. So this is why you need mixed capitalism. And which is interesting because I heard a take the other day that, capitalism bad, socialism good, mixed capitalism the worst of all. And I'm like, body of evidence says no. So I have more thoughts on lobbying, but that's not the topic, and I don't really feel like talking about it. So that's it for me.
Thank you very much. LeftistOwl?
Yeah, I think ultimately we need to take control of our political system. We need to make it so that corporations aren't influencing our government in any meaningful way, and try and ameliorate the issues that come up with capital, the accruement of capital and money and interest in politics. I think we also need to try and push for more green energy solutions and start subsidizing oil and gas so that we can prevent these environment destroying events such as the recent gas leak and the BP oil spill.
Thank you. Sock?
Yeah, I don't know. In regards to lobbying, I mean, I love how the topic transformed into lobbying somehow. We're way far off the sea being on fire. But in regards to lobbying, I don't know. It's almost like a necessary thing, and it's like if they're lobbying for something I don't agree with, then it's bad. If they're lobbying for something I do agree with, then it's good. I don't know. It's just always going to be a thing, whether we like it or not. Also, I believe we should go for more nuclear energy, kind of incentivize that to, try to cover the costs of, I'm sorry, dude, my husky is going wild today.
That's what they do.
She doesn't do this. She's usually the quietest husky in the world. No, but we need to invest more. Maybe cover the costs of building nuclear power plants and whatnot, and invest heavily in that. And I think we would see a reduction in oil spills.
Thank you. Mr. G2EK?
First of all, I want to say that the ski is right. After that, well, I don't know. I tapped out for the lobby part. I'm not really. I mean, this is an important conversation, but yeah, wasn't the topic. To go back on this, yeah, again, I think that if we want something to move, we need to understand that we are all in the same boat and yeah, act all together. I think that saying just that we should switch to renewable energy or switch to nuclear, sure, but it writes itself in a logic that is long term and that needs to be done together. Basically, create a incentive for everyone basically to switch to these energies. So yeah, and also I just want to say that you're all amazing. This panel was done without any shouting, so thank you. I love you all.
Thank you. ThaSwampFox?
Short and simple. Privatize what you can and build nuclear power plants. That's all I got.
Thank you. FreshFace?
Yeah, look, we have to go green, or some combination of nuclear and green. Half the country is on fire, the other half is being flooded. I think we're up to something like 120 people have died in Portland, I think, from the heat. We're going to be facing more stuff like this. The ocean being on fire just is a nice microcosm of how bad things are going to get.
RdZoid?
Yeah, bringing it back to the original topic, but it's I would wait until we know like what specifically went wrong before we can start just pointing blame and shit like that. But yeah, I pretty much agree. Renewables good, nuclear really good. Hell, I'd even say oil and gas are good in some cases. So, but I realize that we do need to probably start steering away from them and try to replace it with what we can. But yeah, that was it.
Thank you. And Thinking Zoomer.
Right. So, I mean, like, okay, here's the thing. Right now, we have a lot of people, a lot of homeless people in America. And at the same time, right now, we have like some of the worst heat we've ever seen in the world. None of these people have any access to something like, an air conditioned room or anything. So, what's happening to these people? Well, they're being left to die literally in the heat. And this is just that itself is a microcosm of global warming and of the fact that we haven't successfully transitioned to, non-fossil fuel usages of energy. And another microcosm of that is what we saw, the little gate to hell that opened in the ocean. If we want to stop this, we really need to try to work on that transition away from fossil fuels as best we can. And it's going to be hard, and there's going to be a lot of bumps in the road. And, like some people brought up, using non-fossil fuel energy doesn't always have the same output. I know it's going to be hard, but it's something that needs to happen. It really needs to happen. So that's what I got to say. Thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you, everybody. We did it. We did the first topic. Proud of all of us. Okay,
Real
then
quick.
with that, yep. Go ahead.
Yeah, just wanted to say nothing to do with the topic. If you like panel and everything, like if you see your favorite streamer and slash content creator right here, it's thanks to two people, Danabo and Binx. So go drop a follow to Binx, subscribe if you can, and for Danabo, shellshockcbd.com. Go on this, enter the code Danabo, you get 10% out of your comment. CBD is awesome if you have trouble sleeping, if you're a little bit stressed or anything. So yeah, shellshockcbd.com, code Danabo, 10% off your comment. And yeah, go follow Binx.
And follow Mr. Geek too. He's doing the commercials, even though he's a panelist, not the host. All right, that's how tapped in he is. Okay.
Because you stole my job.
That's we can talk about that after the show. All right, we're going to go into the secret bonus fun time topic brought to you by Danabo, who we just talked about. Okay. There's no opening or closing for this statement. It's just sort of a general conversation for a little bit. Kind of, it's a mouthwash basically between the two big conversations. What was the one toy you wanted as a child but never got, or what was your favorite childhood toy? Other than I'll open that generally to the panel.
Open form? That's it?
Yeah.
Alright. Oh, for me it was Game Boy Color. I know I'm a fucking boomer and everything, but like, yeah. I got this yellow Game Boy Color and it was freaking amazing. I think this was my introduction to basically like video games and stuff like that, so yeah.
Dude, I had an original Game Boy, so like you don't have to explain it here. I had the original one. That was a banger.
Oh yeah. What game?
This guy.
Of course,
Pokemon.
Pokemon.
Pikachu.
Little Pikachu. I still have it. It makes me happy. And I'm going to say this right now, slightly serious. Make sure you're practicing self-care. Little behind the scenes. The last time I did one of these panels, I was like in day 3 of a massive state of depression, and it shows. And so make sure you're doing things that you like. Taking time to recharge your batteries when you have to. And don't be afraid to like things that you like. If someone's giving you shit for it, fuck them. It's not their life.
Good advice.
Yeah.
I want to throw it to Zoomer because I want to know what the Zoomer generation had for like toys.
Yeah.
What's the
So
important toy?
I'm like 15. I'm barely like out of like the
Really, you look
age
way
where
older than that.
Yeah. I don't know what it is, lighting or something. But like I'm barely out of the age where I used to play with toys, and I could think of two things. First of all, I used to have like a really big set of like trains. I don't know if you guys know about that, but there used to be like a whole thing. It's like they have like wooden tracks and like
With the
the
Brio
trains
trains,
with
like
that
Thomas the
magnet-
Tank and shit.
Yeah, there were a couple.
Yeah, we had those.
I liked those. Like unironically, I loved trains back in the day. It was my whole idea. Like for the first like, until I was probably like 10, I was like sure, like my whole life that like I was going to grow up and I was going to drive trains. That was gonna be my job. That's what I wanted. So yeah, I really like trains. And then it's really weird. This is really weird. Like a guy, but I also like probably really my favorite toy was I had a doll for a very long time until I was like 9 or something. I gave it a weird name. I have no idea where the name came from. Possololi is what I call
Doll
it.
or an action figure?
Yeah. It was like is doll, totally. Like the kind of thing, that's supposed to be for girls, but I forget what happened. I think I lost it on a camping trip. And I remember it made me very sad. But yeah, that's what I had. Good times.
Speaking of, sorry, I don't know. I heard someone wanted to go. So
No, you go.
Okay,
You go,
fine,
Beak.
fine. Speaking of like girl toys versus boy toy and everything, like why were like boy toy were like always those massive shit that like you couldn't carry anywhere, and like girl toy were like girls had like literally like Polly Pocket where you had like a fucking universe in a shit that was like big like this, and like dude girl like literally had like the big ass like figurine and action figure and shit like this.
I don't know. Boys had micro machines.
I
if
don't know
anybody
about
remembers
that.
those.
I don't even know what
Oh.
that is.
I
They
don't
were
remember.
like it was like
That.
it was like kind of boy Polly Pocket, but like there was one I had. It was like the Predator's head and his face opened, and like there was like a jungle scene in there, and then there's like a Predator little action figure that came with it, and then there were like I don't know, there was like pretty much anything you could think of. There was like a themed version of that.
Did any of us mention Legos?
Oh,
And
yeah.
No,
not-
but true.
Yeah.
If not,
TV is
shame
not
on
here,
us.
so there was no Lego
Wanted
mentions.
the
I
best
still
toy.
I'm 15, but I still haven't gotten over Legos. In fact, I made this earlier this year. Full thing of the White House. It's cool and I love it.
Oh.
I don't care what anyone has to say about it. It's cool.
Yeah, if you guys come
Maybe
across
you
it.
guys have Steel Battalion.
Steel Battalion.
That's what I
I don't
wanted. It
think
was
so.
basically like the OG. It was like a mecha game with like the most complicated controller. Like it was just like a whole, mobile command center kind of thing. Came out in like 2005 on original. Expensive. And I was also like 14 or 15. I could have just bought it myself, but I didn't.
LeftistOwl, you got anything?
Oh, what's the topic?
We're just talking about what toys you wanted as a kid, but or favorite toys in general.
Oh fuck! I remember I had the fucking spinny wheel thing from the third Star Wars film that General Grievous had. I remember I had a lot of fun with that.
That actually sounds cool. So what? It was like a General Grievous thing, but like you could roll it or whatever.
The bike you
Well,
used.
it was like pre-built and everything, and you sat General Grievous in it, and it rolled around.
Ah, that's cool. That's cool.
It was the bike you used in the chase scene.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Anyone else got anything else to add to this one? I think my palette's pretty.
Enjoy it.
One thing I also remember is I feel like there was never a toy that I wanted that like I kind of I didn't like end up getting just because like I never actually like at the end of the day I never actually asked for that many toys except for like maybe like Thomas the Train stuff, which I mean my parents appreciated. Like I until I was 12, like the most I ever asked for was like a Slinky at Christmas. I don't know if you guys remember that. I had a lot of fun with that. But yeah. Of course, now I'm like 15. My Christmas present asks for like a new phone, so not so cheap for the parents anymore,
Big true. Okay.
Does
Yeah.
anyone know if the commercials for like action figures are still the same as they were like in the 90s, where they would crash like the action figure through like a
don't
pile of
think so.
blocks
They're
or
not-
something?
It's not the same.
They don't have them
commercials-
anymore.
Lame as fuck.
do that anymore.
greater than everything, like the Beyblades commercials and shit.
Oh, dude, Beyblades were sick.
They're pretty sick.
Nah,
Dippy.
Pogs were better. Any Poggers?
Yeah. Bugs were
I just
amazing.
didn't know there was I didn't know there was a game associated with it.
I actually don't know what like the real Pog, like what is the Pog game?
Those were like little like cardboard disc, like with like drawing like shit on it, and basically like I don't know. I think that the rules vary from school to school, so I don't know about the rules, but yeah,
knew how to
basically you
play
had
it.
like a big one in plastic, that small one in cardboard. Yeah.
A lot of people just collected them.
Yeah, it was like the Pokemon card game that nobody knew how to
Yeah.
play.
It's funny to think that Poggers actually refers to a real object. Because of course now it's just anything, you know.
Pogue, there's a Pogue is a term for people that like aren't infantry in the military too. So it was funny when I first jumped over to Twitch. I was like, "Why are you calling me that?" Like
It's fine.
it's a derogatory term. I'm like, "Shit, what did I do?"
Memes originally started with Richard Dawkins.
Yeah. I was really surprised, like, because like I had like read Richard Dawkins a bit, and then like I was really surprised when I googled I googled like, oh, where do memes come from, and like I found like memes theory, and I was like, oh wow, what do you know? It's that guy. Like I didn't expect Richard Dawkins to create memes, you know?
Oh, he has a chapter. He has a chapter title in the God Delusion.
Yeah.
That's hilarious in retrospect. I forgot what it was called.
I have the book. Let's see. Do you remember what chapter number it is?
No, I just remember it's a.
You guys still read books, like paper books?
I honestly don't read like too much, or it's like as much as I should be.
I do because my Kindle broke, and then I'm just still waiting for other books to come out.
If it's not on Audible, I don't.
Oh
get it.
wait, oh yeah, here it is. Okay.
Audible.
Are you referring to chapter? It's a subsection of chapter 5. Are you referring to tread softly because you tread on my memes?
Yes. That's chapter title is fucking hilarious.
Don't tread on my memes, bruh.
Oh, I just saw this. Zoomer, do you know what a CD is?
Yeah, I do. I lived like around the tail end of those.
What
I
about
had like a
cassettes?
CD player in my house. They're not gone yet. Like I could.
You know about cassettes?
Yeah, I do.
Like
This
you've
is-
used one before?
You know what?
Or
I
you saw
bought.
them it belongs in a
Like,
museum.
I do. Yeah, I actually bought some at like a neighbor's yard sale because they looked cool, but also I vaguely knew that they recorded like sound, and also like at the time, and I still do. I play piano and stuff, and I was like, oh cool, I could record some stuff on there. So like I bought some, and then like they're still on the shelf somewhere like 4 years later.
Like the old school Walkmans and whatnot, or like the CD player that you walked around with, like it in your back pocket with the headphones on.
Yeah, I don't
The
even know.
headphone radio,
Yeah.
the headphone radio thing, the big ass antenna.
This has turned into a boomer panel.
Y'all are dating yourselves big time.
Hey, to be fair, tape is the best to record on because it's got a nice roll up your audio. So, just saying.
Sure. Okay, my palate is thoroughly cleansed, so we'll put a wrap on that. Thank you for that.
was
That was a good one. All right. With that, we're going to go into the last topic of the evening. Let me find it real quick. Sorry. Okay. Insurrection Committee. Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi recently said she appointed Liz Cheney to the committee investigating the January 6th insurrection incident. So far, she's the only Republican on the committee. General thoughts on the Insurrection Committee and this appointment. Where do you think it will lead? We're going to go into opening statements. Let's start with FreshFacesNewIdeas.
I think this one is going to be more effective than the previous one. So I think the Republicans really screwed up when they killed the first one because the first one it had no teeth. Now they have. Now they're dealing with a committee that can actually subpoena people, although we've seen that subpoenaing people has no real effect. But it's actually going to attempt to do this. So the real question is what people are Kevin McCarthy going to put on this, or it's probably going to be closer to the Jim Jordan and the Louis Gomer types than the Laura Bobbitt and the Marjorie Taylor Greens. But it's we need to get answers for this, and I hope we find better answers, and we can actually hold some people accountable, like at the top, the people who started the rallies and the people who organized it. This is like unprecedented stuff that we dealt with, and the fact that already people downplay it or gish gallop or just lie about what happens is just proof that we need to look into it more. And if we got 11 investigations into Benghazi and Hillary Clinton's emails, we should at least get one into an attack on a Capitol.
Thank you. RdZoid?
Yeah, for the most part, I just agree with having a commission. I'm not really sure if there's anything specific about it that I would point out. It's just more usually whenever there's like some sort of like congressional hearing or anything like that, and they pull people in to question them about stuff, they're just like farming clips and whatnot. So like if they go to kind of investigate causes and like what could be better policy for the future, I'm fine with that. I just not super psyched about what it could potentially be based on historical examples. But yeah, so it's like I generally support the commission. I'm just not going to hold my breath.
Thank you. LeftistOwl?
I think it's generally a good idea to have this committee, and if anything is found of it, if anyone could get charged, that they should. However, the sort of language surrounding it, like, oh, this should never happen again, it's just like, we were founded on a revolution, and I'm not saying that people should violently storm the Capitol, but acting as if that this was something that should just never happen regardless of material circumstance is a little odd to me. I think there would be cases in which people would feel justified in doing something like this. Of course, this situation is definitely not one of those. But I feel like some of the language might betray a little bit of a sort of weird vibes around being upset with the system. And I feel like if anything, this could lead to actions similar to the Patriot Act, where we sacrifice some freedoms to have more security.
Thank you. ThaSwampFox?
My argument's simple. I want them, charge them the fullest extent. I don't care who's on the committee, as long as things are done in a proficient and efficient manner. I just want some consistency on the left when it comes to acts of insurrection, taking over a couple city blocks and calling it an autonomous zone, attacking federal courthouses. I mean, and then the left bails them out of jail. So I just want some consistency, and I feel like there is none. So, and I'm sure that's a hot take, and I'm here for questions and comments and concerns.
Very much. Mr. Gate?
Okay, so again, from a EU perspective, I watched this whole thing being kind of scared, to be honest, because watching a country like the US basically going through a coup, coup attempt, basically was kind of super scary. So yeah, the commission is definitely needed, and yeah, I would employ the word never again, because I think that the idea that started this whole thing is a lie. And yeah, they literally went and tried to kill people. So yeah, I don't know why it wasn't done before, why it failed before. That is something that I am still struggling to understand, but yeah, I don't know. Again, EU perspective, I might take a step back and see how the conversation go before chiming in.
All right, thank you. North Countryman?
So when I look at this, what I think needs to happen for our politics to change, I'm not super optimistic that this commission will accomplish that. Right now, Donald Trump is like the sword of Damocles hanging over the heads of congressional Republicans. They can't really make the changes that I would like to see them do or operate until the specter of Trump 24 is gone. What needs to happen is some kind of Frost-Nixon moment where people realize, no, Donald Trump did not have the country's best interests at heart, and he was not a good advocate for, say, America First or the working class Reagan Democrats. He just wasn't. I don't think this Insurrection Commission is going to accomplish that. I don't think it's going to reverse the disturbing trend of relying on populism, which is not unique to the United States, but is across the globe, where it's either, in the case of AMLO, a socialist populism, or a form of Brexit, or that guy, Jair Bolsonaro, a more authoritarian populism. So, in short, yeah, I think the Insurrection Commission should happen, but I'm not optimistic it's going to get us the results we need. It's a Band-Aid on a broken leg.
Thank you. Thinking Zoomer.
Yes. So I obviously think that this commission is good and it's very necessary. And there's a couple of things about this. So first of all, I'm very interested to see all the contention we have around this, because there's very little reasons to object to the committee. I mean, the Capitol was attacked, and there needs to be research needs to be a committee to understand what happened, who was involved, who was in that. We need to be able to understand that. There's really not much of an argument you can make against that. And I understand, some of the Republicans in Congress, kind of want to save face, kind of want to keep it down, but we just need to understand a lot of information about what happened there. And I think there are some questions. One thing, and I'm not trying to get conspiratorial here, but I don't really think that we have the full story, or that we're being told everything about everyone who was involved. I remember that there was a particular news story about how there had been a thing where a couple days before the riot happened, the panic buttons for the offices of a couple of
Ayanna Pressley.
What?
It was Ayanna Pressley.
Right, yeah. Ayanna Pressley. Yeah, had been removed. And I mean, that's suspicious. It's possible there's a little bit more involvement with some people in the Capitol Police than we're aware of. And, I don't know about that, but we definitely need to see what we could find. We definitely need to find out about that. So yeah, it's a really necessary commission. And, even if it's not going to, divorce the Republican Party from Trump, that's not what it has to be about. It's about learning and seeing what we could get information wise about all that. So, it might get something, might get nothing, we'll just have to see, but it's definitely something worthwhile.
Thank you very much. Hardwoodensock.
All right, so I do kind of agree with TheLeftistOwl, where what are the outcomes of this committee going to be? Policy wise, are we going to get another form of the Patriot Act where we lose freedoms? You have the Capitol Police are already going nationwide, right? They open up outposts in, I believe, California and Florida. So I find that interesting, because, it's not the nation's capital anymore. But also I do kind of agree with SwampFox, where it's well, there were attacks on federal buildings last year, you had autonomous zones, you had, people dying there. You had the federal courthouse in Portland that kept getting, trying to be lit on fire. It would be interesting to see if we could, get commissions on that as well. If we're going to do one for January 6th, well, we should do one there. Also, it's kind of I don't know. I want to know the reason why I want a commission is to figure out why the mayor denied more police there in the area, other than optics. Because too many cops, it's bad optics, especially with last year. So I find that to be a pretty terrible claim, and I'm curious how many how much the FBI actually was infiltrating those groups that were partaking in January 6th, and if they had a chance to stop it. So, I think that there's some valuable things coming out of it, but I think that there's things that we need to be concerned about as well.
All right, yeah, we'll go into general discussion. Anybody want to kick it off?
Yeah, I'm going to walk back my statement. I'm not going to take a step back. Fuck this shit. We're going right into it. If the goal of this commission is not to go directly for who's directly responsible for this shit, let's name him Trump. I don't see the point. Yeah, sure, we can go after the people who were here and who literally killed either killed other people or participated, for instance, brought zip tie to this shit with the intent of literally hurting senator and congress people. Basically, but I think that I don't know. I have more compassion for these people who, in my opinion, are just victim of Trump propaganda, because it's literally what it is. He lied in 2012, he lied in 2016, he started in April, basically saying, yo, if I lose, it's going to be because of voter fraud, which led to all of this shit, because if you let people think that basically the election is going to be stolen and taken away from them, how do you expect that they react to this? So to some extent, yeah, I want to go through who is responsible. And there's one name that we need to address before everything else. And stop the whataboutism.
Let's say they do that. Let's say they're just we're gonna go after Trump because we think he's the sole perpetrator or the cause.
The
whatever.
main.
What are you what are you hoping the outcome of that is?
First of all, making sure that he cannot run again when it comes to an election. That's it.
Is
making sure that he's out of political life.
The only way would be he'd be in jail. You can still be indicted and run for office. You would have to be in.
I would be okay with that. It led to the death of people. It led to literally event that led to people dying. Ashley Babbitt, the cop, and I think there were 5 people this day who died. Yeah. And 2 pipe bomb planted.
There have been people that have called the election stolen for years. I mean, Clinton did it every day after she lost.
It never led to something like that.
Democrats voted against the Electoral College as well. Multiple times.
And when did she concede?
Going on for months, saying this is going to be stolen.
It is stolen. right after she lost.
That feels disingenuous.
No, man.
She's still doing it now. Just read her books.
I would like to see, where she said that. Because I don't particularly remember that, but we also have Geek. You also have to remember that they had their chance to make sure Trump was, couldn't go up for re-election, and the Republicans basically killed any chance of that happening.
Yep.
I think it is important to go after Trump and his involvement in this. Do I think it's going to happen? Probably not. But I think a more apt argument is that we should be targeting the Republicans that supported Trump and supported these conspiracy theories and pushed for this insurrection to happen, and go after them and get them out of office.
We should push for the information that we're aware of, just that appears to be it.
I gotta ask. Oh, sorry.
No, because similar to what Dickie Zoomer said, was talking about the Ayanna Pressley panic button. We do know Laura Boebert was tweeting out information currently while it was happening. There is at least some evidence that Marjorie Taylor Greene was giving tours to this. We know that some of these people are still hopping around, but pulling in people like Charlie Kirk or Alex Jones, or I forget the name of the other guy who helped start the Stop the Steal rally. Bringing these people in and seeing what it was, because these are the people who kind of organized it, and then ultimately, I guess, some type of on a legislation front, some type of I don't even know how you would feasibly do this, but some type of like insurrection legislation that would make it harder for politicians to outrightly spread lies about an election that they lost. And just Swamp, I haven't read the stuff that you put up, but this is, I imagine, I'm going to take a guess at this. This has to do with Russian interference, is what she says in it. And look, those people who misunderstood the Russia's involvement in 2016, saying that they installed Donald Trump, or they just don't understand what happened. But it's not an apt comparison because one, she conceded, and two, she's not currently holding events she wasn't currently holding events in front of a fake White House, pretending he is still president, while giving major speeches saying that this still happened. He was just at Maria Bartiromo saying things like that. He was just on at CPAC basically saying that it's and they're lawyers, like there were lawyers who were actively pushing this, the same people who were discredited. Anytime Sidney Powell says something and hypes people up about this, they all forget the fact that her lawyer said no rational person can believe the things that she says. I mean, how do the goal is you have to figure out how to prove further that these people, that he just lied about everything. And this idea that they were going to overthrow the country or overturn this election to protect Donald Trump just doesn't make sense. And it's the problem is there's a growing segment of the Republican Party. I think currently it's somewhere between 18 and 25% that believes that violence is the option that we have to go to at this point.
All right, so do we criminalize lying then? Like, is that what you're asking?
This is no, I'm not advocating for that. That's why I counted to what I was saying, and I said I wouldn't really sure. There has to be some type of measurement to say, like, you can't impute an election in a certain way like that. Because it's not, like, you can absolutely argue for recounts and stuff. And he got all those. Like, this idea that Donald Trump didn't get his fair shot to prove that there was some type of fuckery going on is just flat out false. The reason this is like the most certified election ever, and the reason that all this stuff that, like, when they went to court and they lost 60 out of 61 cases, and it wasn't just to Obama judges, it was to Bush judges, it was to Trump judges, is because they just didn't have the evidence and they just kept repeating it. And so
they couldn't justify standing. I don't think they actually looked at evidence. There just was no standing.
Well, that's because if you don't understand it, you can't go into.
That's yeah.
If you go,
because there's no standing. Well, even but on top of that, even in some of their lawsuits, Giuliani said we're not even alleging fraud.
Yeah, it's all shit. I'm just saying, like once again, I've been talking about consistency since the opening content here. I mean, if we're going to hold Trump responsible for the January 6th thing, we're going to hold Kamala Harris responsible for bailing out people that were burning down the fucking the cities and shit.
Sure, if you want. And when it's the topic,
then,
we'll talk
great.
about
We all
this.
agree
But
then.
let's move on from the whataboutism and focus on this.
Well, I was gonna say originally, if your goal is to, like, prevent Trump from regaining office sometime in the future, or anything, or any sort of legal avenue, I don't think Congress is the way to do it. They can't indict anybody. They can't do anything like that. What you're talking about, any investigation like that would have to come through either the FBI or the DOJ, which they could be doing too. So the Congressional Commission couldn't even touch it if that were the case.
There was a vote in the first place to make sure that he couldn't run again, which the Republican opposed.
Oh, right. Of course they're going to oppose it.
There was no reason to. I mean, if
there's every reason to, like, it's
what? If you have someone who is literally
hold on. From a political standpoint, there's every reason to, not from like any sort of moral or ethical standpoint, because once you start introducing politics into it, now you have to. There's a bunch of different ways you have to start reevaluating things.
But look, the right, I understand that, but there's also enough information to know that, like, at some point you have to step off this edge. You can't keep pushing this to the edge anymore. Like, there are Republicans on record saying, look, I have to do this because I'm afraid of my base and what they might physically do to me. There are Republicans there. His vice president, there was people that are trying to hang him. Like, if you can't come out and denounce the things that were said from that, more than the 10-minute speeches that the ones happened, or the entirely disingenuous Mitch McConnell speech after they let him off, you have to be able to push for something else to break the fever, because the fever will not be broken by pushing further and harder for this.
Even politically speaking, yeah, I agree 100% with the fresh face, which is that even politically it would make sense when you have someone who literally turned on his VP just because his VP didn't do something that he couldn't do in the first place, which is to the day of the certifying of the election say I refuse the result. Like, what the fuck? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, the reason why he turned on Mike Pence was something that he couldn't do, and he literally put Mike Pence in danger. Like,
Yeah,
it makes sense politically. You have someone who is literally going after people of your own party. Like,
it's
You're right,
political-
from that
it's
aspect,
political suicide, because the Republican part, the people that denied Trump's impeachment and also pushed this narrative of a stolen election, they're committing political suicide because they're showing that they have no integrity. They have every reason to denounce Donald Trump and separate from him, but they refuse to, and they show that they don't have any actual integrity.
Well, from your
Then why are we
standpoint,
worried about
from
that?
your standpoint, it looks like political suicide, but we don't know. Well, I don't know how much of the actual Republican base is like pure Trump supporting still. So
Yeah.
it's
If I could,
I gotta agree with RD there, because I mean, it looks like political suicide because obviously, I mean, it seems like they have no integrity, but their political base, and what I'm trying to say is their political base gives jack shit that they have no political integrity. They're fine with their politicians kind of just being that way.
if I can,
Evidence that they would care.
Let's start to North real quick.
So yeah, on the idea that this is political suicide for Republicans not oppose Trump, I am actually seeing quite the opposite of that. And it was my own congresswoman who was appointed to replace Liz Cheney when she was ousted as the third most ranking House Republican. And the entire basis for her promotion was support for Donald Trump. And here's the weird thing. Her only support for Donald Trump is the first impeachment thing. And there are still, we know exactly where they are, there are still Donald Trump protesters in my town who continually hold protests saying that she needs to support Donald Trump even more. The delusion of of Donald Trump's being the greatest thing in the world and that all Republicans must back him. That's why I said he's the sword of Damocles. Until he is no longer a contender for a 24 election or any other election in the future, Republicans are incentivized, because the people have been riled up to back Trump-backed candidates. Then he's going to have a corrupting influence on politics. So
I think he's got more power not running for president and just being part of the RNC, right? So I think banning him, I don't think he's really going to run again. I think until after the right, because he's old as shit. I mean, the guy's got a lot of money.
your mic is cutting out. Sorry to cut you.
All right, can you guys hear me better now? Let me do this.
You're good.
Yeah, you're good.
All right, so I think he's can do a lot more damage by not running for, and removing him from office is base a lot more fuck these guys. I mean, that's basically why he got elected in the because they hated the establishment, right?
Yeah, but
I don't know.
I think that the reason he got elected and the reason why people keep following him are completely different. I think that I hate this shit. I sound like far left, but yeah, fuck it. I genuinely believe that at this point this is a cult. There's no other way. They're completely disconnected from reality, and there's nothing to reattach to it. So I mean, I don't know. Even politically, I don't know if that's if as
I don't think
Republican
anybody
that's what
here
you
is going to
want.
disagree with that. Like, I'm pretty sure everyone here
Yeah, I
agrees
gotta-
with you that
Yeah, but, like-
those people are
gotta-
deranged.
But here's the other question: like, what would this committee have to do to change these people's minds about what happened? Because
There's
we have
nothing
them-
they can do.
No, I want to make it.
Things
I,
gonna
oh
change
yeah,
their
sorry.
minds.
Fresh Faces, you can go first.
Because there's like even this is something that I say a lot is just ask one more question. So when you hear the Paul Gosars and the Marjorie Taylor Greens and the Matt Gaetz say, oh, it's Antifas and BLMs who attacked the Capitol, and you say, okay, well then why did you vote against the panel to look into it? Like, why would you protect them? It's like at what point does this become less about like telling these people the truth and something about moving on? So I think if they had broken with Trump and they had fully impeached him and the Republican Party had gathered itself together and just yelled socialism at something else, they would have been fine. I think their base would have they would have lost some segment of their base, but I think they would have won enough of the people, the independents and the hesitant Republicans who stayed home, that it would have made up for the outright batshit crazy people that they would have lost by dumping Trump. Because look, you're going to have to deal with a larger portion. There's going to be more Laura Bobitz and more Marjorie Taylor Greens than there are going to be less of them. So, you know, having had the chance to just like cut him out would have been, and it would have been much better had they had like, because they can yell about enough stuff. Everything is socialism. Everything is communism. They're coming to take your guns and your Bibles. They hate America. Like this shit that doesn't. This goes for any Republican. They don't need Trump to say this. They can say, look, he had the right message. He's the wrong messenger. We're gonna move on now. That should have been the argument for them.
I mean, both sides could say the same things about each other, right? Like,
Yeah.
capitalism bad, everything's capitalism's fault, right? You know, I mean, everybody's got their silly
Democrats are
views,
saying
you
that
know?
one.
Yeah, I mean, or all Republicans are
very
fascists
liberal.
and things like that. I hear that a lot on these panels. Not this one particularly, but I mean, I don't think you're going to change any minds as long as you're isolating yourselves.
Yeah, but the
And
people
I see that happening a lot lately.
the people who are like capitalism bad, like usually are like so far left and so terminally online that like they don't engage in politics. So fuck them. I just want to go back to the idea of like fresh face. I don't think that the commission will help in any way on that level, because like the only way is literally to remove this element, to remove this part of like the Trump party at this point, like to and like fucking like amputate this rotten leg. Like that's all you can do, because at this point it's already too late. Like they're already in this mentality, and it like I'm not going to go in length about this, but like the only thing that you can do is cut this shit and try to move on. That's the only way to move forward from this. Because if we continue having like Marjorie Taylor Greene, having Trump who comes and basically like, even if he did, like, I'm not even sure if he says it, like, yeah, he says it, yeah. Anyway, yeah, like
Okay.
Trump like relaunching the debate every week, like, yeah, there's no way you're going to move
Maybe
on
the
from
left
this.
should just act like they like them, because part of the reason they get all these votes is because Republicans basically hate everything that the Democrats like, right? And vice versa. So if the Democrats are like, man, Marjorie Taylor Greene's good, then they probably wouldn't vote for her, right? I mean, maybe you take that effect. I mean, that really does play into it a lot. I mean, anything that Democrats part, people on the right will be like, yeah, fuck that, and they go the opposite.
Yeah, okay. A little bit unrelated, but like, imagine if that actually happened. You think it would? You think they could?
Shit probably
if
would
that
work.
actually
Yeah.
happened, you like, I genuinely don't know. Maybe it'll actually work.
It reminds me of when people in the army would joke about putting like taping parts of the Quran to their chest so they wouldn't get fired at by the enemy or some shit like that.
Yeah, it's like ISIS and whatnot. They're freaking like Islamofascist nuts.
See, I think it's just going to take time, you know, and time not talking about it, right, for these things to kind of go away, right? Because the commission's not going to change anyone's mind, right? I think we can all agree on that.
Yep.
Yes.
You know, so the more we talk about it, right, the more fuel it adds for Trump to keep fucking talking about it too, right? So
That's not how it works.
it's just like if we stop talking about it, right? I think the Democrats actually have like a a good point to keep talking about it because they're going to use it in 2022 in the midterms, right? I think that's
Yeah, they better.
yeah. So I think that's why they're not going to let it die, right? They're just going to keep it going, right? So then that keeps the Trump people keep it going. You know what I mean? So we're not allowing it to settle down at all when we just keep talking about it over and over.
This
That's
sounds
not how
exactly
it
like
works.
this sounds exactly like the we shouldn't talk about race argument. No, we need to talk about it. We need to examine why exactly this happened and try to
I'm gonna
mitigate.
talk next, by the way.
Okay, and try and
Yeah.
mitigate something like this happening again. However we can. Like just ignoring it and forgetting about it is gonna do fuck all.
Okay, so how are you right? What is your prescription for making sure this never happens again?
Amputate the rotten leg.
But how do you do that?
Exactly.
Okay, so now I gotta say some stuff.
All right.
First of all, I mean, I agree. I think talking about it is probably like an effective method of making sure nothing ever happens again. Like, make sure like that everyone knows like this was something that happened, but make sure that when it goes down in the history books, it's something that was bad. It was something that soiled the reputation of like all the Trump people, and making sure that that's kind of like its legacy is a way of ensuring that there's no incentive to ever try anything like it again. But also adding on to a little bit of something that was said before, because I need to comment on it. Like, I think we're all like in agreement that this January 6th commission has like no chance of like ever changing any like Trumpists' minds on the issue. And to add to that, I feel like there was like all throughout the Trump presidency, there were a lot of liberals who were like continually saying like, now's the time, man. Like oh, Trump crossed that line. It's gonna be now. They're all gonna leave him. It's gonna happen. Like it was like this prophetic day that Trump would cross the line. Like I heard them saying it's about like Russia and then Ukraine and that whole thing where he said to like eat bleach or whatever. Like there were people like there was even an economist guy who was like they're all gonna leave him after he said to I don't know what it was, like eat bleach or whatever. Like they're all gonna go and it never happens. And even I believe that to some extent. I thought that like the one thing that would bring Trump down was if Fox News left him, and that kind of happened a little bit, and nothing happened. And this is going to be just like that. I assure you, there's going to be some people on Twitter saying like, oh, they're all going to leave him after they see how he did this, but they're not going to leave him. They're just going to stay there. And I don't think there's any way to change that. I think at this point, unless lightning strikes Donald Trump or something, like, I don't know, like like nothing's going to happen. Like he's already got his fan base. And nothing's gonna change that. We're kind of screwed a little bit. The only thing is to hold them at bay. Like make sure they're not winning elections. Like if that's what you want to do. Like that's about all that can be done.
Yeah, but like
Anyway.
I think like the 2 points that were made like are linked. Like basically why the commission is not going to do anything, and why the fact that like no matter what Trump does, no one will drop him. He literally like. I don't know, he gave a pardon to someone who like literally scammed his own supporter base, and people are still supporting him today. Like he don't like, and this is just again a drop in the ocean of like everything that he does. And the problem is
Well,
that he created...
Do you think nobody stopped supporting him after January 6th?
Oh, well,
some
okay,
of them,
here's the thing.
but like for instance, like Kelly Loeffler, who was running for Georgia. She dropped him like on January 6th. Like they were like she was going to oppose like basically the validation of like the certification of the result, and after January 6th she said fuck that, I'm out. The woman who was running with the idea that she's more Republican and more conservative than fucking Gengis Khan dropped Trump. Yeah, there are some examples like this, but what happened is that Trump didn't give up. He continued his whole spiel, and his whole like voter base, this one fan base, continued to like push people like Cheney out, push people like Loeffler out, and everything. Like they're going to like. This is why I said that the only way is literally to remove Trump from this. Like take lesson from this. Like I don't know. I don't know how we do that. Like today in today's society, but. This is what needs to be done. Like we cannot continue having people because like even if you keep him at bay, he's going to come up with, in one way or another, and basically keep spewing the same bullshit, and people will still believe him. I think that we need to cut that and take care of the people. We cannot do that while having someone who is still going like every week and saying, oh, by the way, the election was stolen from me. And having stuff like the, no, sorry, I'm not going to change the topic. Anyway, I'm going to leave it to that.
Therein lies the big question. How do you remove someone's political influence in the United States where people have strong freedom of speech? It's pretty damn hard.
Well, I think there's two. So one, you can be very outspoken with how you cover him. So I cover a lot of like right-wing stuff, which might be why a lot of my community is right-wingers, even though I'm progressive. So I get into these arguments all the time. It's just repetition for the things that are happening there. You're not going to change everyone's mind, but getting these facts over and over again and being and having the people actually deal with things. So there's this thing I'm going to cover for tomorrow. Is you have to actually deal with the true facts and not make up more dumb things to deal with. Focus on the election wasn't stolen, he lost all of this, and then talking about the actual facts. Like the only thing that really should be debatable about like the current information we know about January 6th is whether the officer used too much force when dealing with Ashley Babbitt. Like at that point, it's like that might be the only really debatable thing. The question of whether they were tourists or not, or whether they were violent or not, should not be debated. And this is partly from anyone with a platform needs to be able to push back on these things. So even giving any of this stuff a little bit of daylight keeps it going. And I think the other thing is the Republican Party had to be able to have turned face from him, because if they had let him stew in Mar-a-Lago and do the desk of Donald Trump and nobody gave a shit about him, it would have been fine. But then when people like McCarthy go down there, when people like Loeffler, because Loeffler didn't get dumped by the Republican Party. What happened to Loeffler is she lost because she was a bad candidate. And she went down. Like when they go down and they kiss the ring, it creates this perception that he still has power. And while he might have some type of power, we've seen his effect. We've seen that if they don't bow to the ability for Trump to push some of these candidates, they're not going to get across the line. If candidates aren't vying to be the most Trumpian, they will be able to hopefully win. But even if they don't win, and we can see that the Trump candidates don't win either, because we have data to prove that he isn't a viable presidential candidate. He just lost. And the hope is that the party can push back against the ones who are going to portray his message and push them out, or make them such a small minority and don't give them so much talking point. Part of the reason Marjorie Taylor Greene gets people talking about it is because she literally has no power. If the Republican Party had actually done the right thing, or could do the right thing, and remove her because she's legitimately a threat to the people in office, and maybe bring in, say, hey, we're going to try to force a special election to bring in a candidate who will actually have the ability to represent you, that would be going a long way. But allowing her to sit here and every other week forget that she knows what the Holocaust is, or spread whatever current lie she is, it's going to hurt them. At some point, they have to stand up and take responsibility and actually fight back against this. And it can't just be the dozen or so people in the House. There has to be senators who actually stand up and do it. And the only way they're going to do it is if they are blocked. If McConnell thought for a second that Trump would be a roadblock to the tax cuts of the judges, he would dump them in a minute. But enough of the Congress has to be able to stand up and say, enough is enough. We have enough issues with Joe Biden's a socialist. They want to do whatever else the issue is. There's enough things that they can fight about again without having to go back to Donald Trump is still president.
Okay, but I would push back on that. Am I muted? I am muted. No, I'm not. Hey, look at that. Is that if you had any Republican that stood up to Donald Trump would very likely lose re-election afterwards. Trump's voters are still active in a major force. And yeah, Trump voters do lose general elections, and I think they should, but they end up winning primaries. And so that happens first.
Right, but here's my argument, that wouldn't the ability to them not be in Congress, wouldn't that give the non-Trump Republicans who win say, look, if you continue to vote for people who project this idea, we will not be able to gain power and give you the things that you want. If you want us to stop the socialism, if you want us to do border security, if you want us to stop raising your taxes, whatever the thing they run on is, you have to move away from this group. I think having a proven track record that's saying, look, your ideas are not going to work. We need to go to our core issues of whatever the Republican ideas are, that they're going to run on. I think that has a better option. I think overall proof that, hey, look, these aren't the right ideas that the American people want. We need to actually have the autopsy we were attempting to have in 2012 would be better for both the Republican Party and the country.
So if you had a scenario where,
like, literally Trump was voted, like, won the Republican primary because he wasn't a Ted Cruz, or Paul Ryan, or somebody like that, right? I mean, those Republicans never got anything done, or that's how the Republican base feels at the moment. So they put in a guy that wasn't a politician to go and clean the swamp, right?
I won't say they necessarily
I get
put him in. He kind of steamrolled everybody, so I figured they were like reluctantly like, all right, we'll back you.
and I would also add to this
go
that following up on the Liz Cheney versus Stefanik thing, Stefanik has a 73% conservative rating. Cheney had 90%. Cheney is definitely more conservative than Stefanik, but the deciding thing was loyalty to Donald Trump. It's not just a matter of pushing for Republican views or saying who's effective. The Trump voters just do not care about that. It's how much they can say Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump. That's the only thing they care about. The idea that there's this secret group of Republicans that will just jump out and say, oh, you're effective, we will support you. They just don't exist. They're outnumbered by the Trump Republicans 2-1. I'd like it to be the other way, but it's just not.
Oh, I do know that there appears to be less Republicans, but I think by moving more, this is the same argument they make for to leftists, even though most of our ideas are more popular politically. The reason we have to move toward the middle is because there's apparently less of us. So I think part of it has to be the party itself has to push back. I think if Kevin McCarthy said, look, we're not removing Liz Cheney because she's more conservative than Stefanik. If Kevin McCarthy wasn't made out of Jell-O, I think that would have been an advantage. And especially now, with Kevin McCarthy has to realize, especially from the things being pushed at CPAC, where they're saying we have to make Donald Trump speaker. You would think that at least for his political future, he would try to push back on these things. Like at some point, even your own political self-preservation has to trump this whatever small power you're getting right now.
If McCarthy had tried to stand up to his base, they would have removed him from leadership and then brought in somebody else who would have just gone with that.
I don't know if that's necessarily true, because look, if he had done it after the first one, so they originally tried to censor Cheney, and she won overwhelmingly. She won like 2-1 there. And I think if he had said, look, we talked among ourselves, this is how it's going to be. We're going to move on from this idea of Donald Trump being the standard bearer of the party. We're still going to use his ideas. Unfortunately, he is not effective. He is not what the American people want. We will carry his message, and we will find somebody who the American people can agree can carry it. A lot of the problem we deal with is hindsight is 20/20. The coulda, woulda, shouldas are infinite. And there's no way to really go back and solve these problems. The question is, what do you do with the Republican Party now? And the hope is, at some point, either the leaders or there will be enough candidates who prove that they cannot win, and they hammer that message home, would be effective. And the other way to do that would be for some Republicans, at least in leadership, to push back on the ones who are really the problem. And look, maybe you don't go after Marjorie Taylor Greene, because she is a fundraising machine for God knows what reason. Maybe you go after the Paul Gosars or the Laura Bowmans. Maybe you start with some of the smaller fruits that are easier for you to remove and are slightly less toxic, but they're easier to show that you can actually start exercising this cancer.
What if they don't want to remove them, though? I mean, you're never going to vote Republican no matter who's in the
That is not true.
Why is it? Why
I
are you
know
so
exactly
focused
what
on it?
policies I believe in.
Which Republican would you vote? Would you have voted for in the last 30 years? Please don't say H.W. Bush.
No, I'm gonna be honest. I don't have the history for the last 30 years. I wasn't alive for all of that.
Yeah,
So I would
so
have
I
to
think
go back.
SwampFox has a fair point. I kind of feel like, Freshface, you're like holding on to a hope that doesn't exist. I mean,
Oh no.
like I've
I'm
been
well
saying,
aware that there's. I'm trying to do prescriptive arguments, and I think at this point the only thing
Okay.
I'm advocating for is for like any of us on the panel is to just kind of have like a unified message to what we have to spread to whatever reach we have.
Yeah, there were 75 million people, I believe, that voted for Trump. So it's going to be a little bit harder than just saying he doesn't the party when the entire party voted for him, including some moderate leftists and Republicans.
So yeah, like I see what Freshface is saying is like that would be good, but it's not going to happen. And I think, to be honest, if we want to be realistic, I feel like the only thing left to do is, well, like I said, try to not from the Trump side, not from the Republican side, but from everyone else who's like against that stuff. Hold them at bay. Make sure that they can't grasp any more political power. Do everything in our power to try to make sure the Republican Party, like this crazy version of the Republican Party, is held down. It can't do anything, or to the extent, to the fullest extent possible. And like from our side, it's like the only place where anything's gonna get done. From their side, I mean, Trump's like. I mean, they had their chance in 2016 if a couple of things had changed, But now he's there and he's there to stay, and that's it. He's gonna be there. I kind of feel like that's a, done deal.
All right, let's finish up, and then we can go into closing statements. So,
Yeah.
do something that.
Yeah, fuck it. I will make it my closing statement, unless someone else has something they want to say.
Everybody good? Okay, cool. Closing statements, Mr. Geek. Shout
All right.
yourself out, also.
Yeah. First of all, Fresh, can you mute? Like, I'm getting the noise from your mic. Sorry.
Yeah, I got it.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah. First thing I want to say is, yeah, we all agree commission will not amount to anything. I think it will make things better when it comes to I think it's Hardwoodensock who talk about the police, the fact how the police handle basically the riot during January 6th. But beside that, I don't think it will amount to anything politically. I think that's something that could be important to do, and this is something that needs to be done on both parts, basically, bipartisan effort, would be to take a peek into the claim of voter fraud and go dive into it. I'm not saying do that to debunk it, just take a peek at it. Take a look at it, do your own research, I'm tempted to say. Try to do that in the least biased way as possible, because that's how basically if you make this claim fall apart, because it should fall apart. I spent months looking into this shit, and Jesus Christ, anyway, it will. You will realize that there's nothing, and once you get rid of this claim, I don't think there's much to I think this is the beginning of kind of bringing all the Trump voter base, all the hardcore fan who thinks that the election was taken away from him, and that who thinks that anytime soon he's going to go back in power, because this is something that happens on a lot of Q website, that they think that in July or September he's going to come back. This is the first step to bringing these people back to reality. That's pretty much it. As for me, I'm Mr. Geek. I'm Dylan Burns' editor. Well, not just him. I did editing for John Bird, for Relevant, for Dylan Burns, and for a shit ton of people. So, if you like chill stream, go check me out. And thank you for having me.
Thank you. We'll go to Hardwoodensock.
Cool. Yeah. So, I kind of still feel the same way I did in the beginning, where it's the commission really isn't going to solve anything. It's not going to change anyone's minds. If anything, it's just going to give us insight into why, you know, the police weren't adequately staffed, the Capitol wasn't properly defended, you know, who organized it. You know, I think like that's all it's going to give us insight to. It's not going to change any minds. I do worry about what policies would come out of it. You know, like with the expansion of the Capitol Police, like basically across country, it makes me very nervous. Because they need to stay in the Capitol. Yeah, but you know, I think you know, my prescription, which I know you guys don't agree with, is just give it time, you know, and let like all these, you know, all these dates, right? You had like January 6th, March 4th, you know, I think August is the next date, right, for the Q people, right? Let those dates come and go. And the more dates, I mean, I don't know. I hope that with each passing date that nothing happens, you know, more people kind of hop off the train, you know, and then hopefully in the next, you know, 3 years, like there's still going to be some people, you know, but you know, hopefully they're all gone. But yeah, no, I'm Hardwoodensock. Find me on twitch.tv/Hardwoodensock. You know, thank you for inviting me, Binx and Danabo, you know, for setting this up. I know it was, you know, mixing puzzle pieces together. And Geek, I love you, you know. You know, I miss you. So, but I love both of you. So, you know, it's great. But no, thanks again for having me. And I will hopefully be back on here, you know, soon. Nice talking to everyone too, by the way.
Thank you very much. Thinking Zoomer.
Right. Cool. So I had a kerfuffle with the mic, but okay. On January 6th, it was the first time in American history that a Confederate flag was flown over the Capitol, and I think it's just, I mean, that's sad. And a lot of things that happened on January 6th were horrible. I mean, the Capitol was attacked, and that should be taken seriously. It still should be taken seriously, and it should not be something that we forget. And I think that the purpose of a commission is to find out what we can about it. It's not just about, you know, not forgetting. And like I said earlier, there's some stuff that we don't really know yet. You know, there were some issues where, like, some Congress people, they had their panic buttons, like, ripped out the day before the commission. Or, sorry, not commission, the day before the riot. And there was Marjorie Taylor Greene leading tours of people who would do the insurrection the next day. And this is incredibly suspicious, and we need to learn what was really happening, who was involved. There's some stuff that we don't know, and we need to find out what was going on there. And there's another question that was brought up in this panel, which is that can any of this do anything to shake, like, the whole Trump crowd? And I think the answer is no. There's really nothing we could do about the Trump following at this point. Yeah, you know, maybe a couple of people will jump off the train if they learn about Trump's involvement with this all, if that's what happens at the commission, if that's what they figure out. But it won't be enough. It won't be anything significant at all, really. Nothing to report home about. And at the end of the day, all we could really do to make sure that something like this doesn't happen again, and to make sure, like, that the Trump people stay out of power, is to be vigilant and virulent. Like, we have to remind people this is something that happens. This is the conclusion of this kind of Trump stuff. It happened. We don't want to let people forget that this is what this led to. And also, we need to be strong. We need to make sure that we're not getting, like, the current form of the Republican Party cannot have power. We have to make sure it doesn't. Not in its, like, weird Trumpian state. Not right now. We got to make sure it stays out. We got to push for progressive policies. We got to make sure that they're just not there to the best we can. I mean, you can't fully do that. But, you know, it's something we got to work on. And we need to be strong with that. So, you know, at the end of the day, I believe this is it's a very good idea to have this commission. I think it's going to be a good idea. How much will it do to, like, stop the Trump people? Nothing. It won't do anything. Don't expect that. You know, keep expectations low. So we'll just see what we can learn when this commission goes through, you know? Besides that, I am Thinking Zoomer. You can find me on YouTube. I don't have a fancy link yet because I don't have enough subscribers for that. So, you know, if you just search Thinking Zoomer into the YouTube search bar, you could find me. I am Thinking Zoomer, not the Thinking Zoomer, who is actually a different guy. So, yeah, if you like this, you know, come check me out. It was great to be on this panel. I'm so happy I'm here. So, you know, I want to thank everybody, you know, for being nice, letting me on. Yeah, and I'd love to be back. This is just such an amazing opportunity. So thank you so much, everybody. It was really nice being on. And that's all.
Thank you. We'll go to RdZoid as I'm down the Coke can so he can finish off the rush.
Yeah, I'm pretty much yeah, like I'm fine with there being a commission. I think it might be a good idea to see what things could have led up to it, or what we could do in the future to kind of prevent something like that from happening. But based on stuff I've seen Congress do, I'm just skeptical that anything that good is going to come from it. Usually seems like they like to farm clips and get good sound bites for it, but who knows? Maybe we'll see. But yeah, I just want to thank you for having me on. And if you ever want to come watch me grind Bannerlord, for now at least, come do that. Or if you want to argue with me, come do that. It's always fun. But yeah, twitch.tv/RdZoid. Again, thanks for having me on, Dan, and Binx, thanks for hosting. And yeah.
Thank you. LeftistOwl?
Yeah, ultimately, I agree. The commission should be a thing. Whether or not it does something is up in the air for me. But I think at the very least, having it established and having it doing some sort of investigatory work is good. Not only optically, but in terms of setting a precedent of doing this sort of thing when this type of thing happens. But I do think we should be wary of the policies that come through as a result.
All right, you want to shout yourself out?
Oh, you can find me at TheLeftistOwl on Twitch, LeftyOwl on Twitter, LeftistOwl on YouTube. And as I said before, I'm doing a series where I interview LGBTQ people. So if you are in the LGBTQ community, just hit me up.
Thank you. North Countryman?
Yo, so I agree with my fellow bearded center righty that the only thing that'll shake Donald Trump's influence on the party is just waiting for him to go. Perhaps someone like Ron DeSantis, who is or Tom, what the hell's his name? Tom Cotton, who have Trump ideas but are a little bit more palatable, can act as kind of a, ease the party off of the drug that is Donald Trump. In closing, twitch.tv/North Countryman, if you look for kind of relaxing lecture style politics 101. And as for this whole panel, this was the, no surprising since it's the one Binx is hosting, this was the greatest Twitch panel in the history of Twitch panels. All other panels going forward will need to compare themselves to this panel here.
I'm literally right here.
Sorry. Yeah, I know. And we're happy for it.
Go on, North. I want to hear what you guys say.
And if they don't match up this level of thinking, rational, level-headed, wonderful people, then really they need to think, should we really be doing this panel at all? Or maybe we should just start making balloon animals. You know? And so this was fantastic, and I'm happy to be here. And if I can, just one quick thing. I mentioned at the beginning, this is my first stream as a Twitch affiliate. I never would have gotten here if it wasn't for Danabo giving me a chance, for Mr. Geek saying, like, sure, I'll let this guy have this guy on my panel and give it a whirl. And I will be forever grateful for both of them for that. And they are good friends to just starting out content creators in this community. They're wonderful people.
Thank you, North. Congrats on the affiliate. FreshFacesNewIdeas.
All right. Nope. pop off. The heat will cut down. Anyway, so my ultimate thought is it's good we're going to have this commission. I think the best way for something serious to come out of it would be for McCarthy to actually put serious people on it, but we'll see about that. I think another possible way to do it is to have more of this stuff behind closed doors so that it's not farming sound bites in the same way that they're worried about. But yes, I am worried about some type of Patriot Act law. But look, I don't think this is going to go away without some part of the Republican Party standing up and trying to turn it down. So as for that, as for who I am Fresh Faces New Ideas. Just like North Countryman, this is my first panel since being an affiliate. It happened to me earlier this week. So I thank you, Mr. Geek. Thank you, Binx. Thank you, Danabo, for having me on a couple times I've been here. I'm on, you can find me on Twitch at Fresh Faces New Ideas. I usually stream 1 p.m. EST. It varies. Somehow my vaccine 5G has been terrible and it kills all my internet like once a week. You can also find me on YouTube under Fresh Faces New Ideas and on Twitter at Faces Ideas. I have my Discord in there, so if you want to have a conversation with me, I will talk to pretty much anybody about anything. So feel free to come in, and I hope to see more of you guys. And once again, thank you for having me on this panel, and I hope I'm in more.
Thank you. Congrats on the affiliate too. Finally, SwampFox.
SwampFox, that's where you can find me. That's my name. I think the commission's kind of just a some political grandstanding. I think if they really want to change things for the better, they come out with better policy that's more applicable and stop isolating themselves from right in the center and whatever else. Other than that, if TheLeftistOwl and Hardwoodensock want to learn how to get that Logi capture logo cams, I will help you. Just let me know. The SwampFox, it's been real. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. All right, that's everybody. Okay. Well, thank you, panel, for coming on. This is my first time. I didn't have anything to moderate. I didn't have anything to do. I was waiting. I wanted to mute someone or something, but you guys did it all yourselves. So thanks for that. Good conversation. Good panel. And thanks for everyone for watching. Don't forget to follow Danabo, follow Mr. Geek, follow Dylan Burns, all that good stuff, and we'll see you next week.
CharlesShockCBD.com, code Danabo. 10% off.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Are you like a music producer, like audio engineer?
I'm trying to be.
Oh, no.
Definitely trying to be. What? Yeah. I've been sick lately.
Like the mixer in the back.
Yeah, I mean this thing's old. It's analog, and I got it for free, and then I plugged it into a Focus, so it's working out pretty well. But I gotta go. I gotta work tomorrow. You guys have a good one. Yeah, send me a message if you want to get that Logi shit off there. I just stopped using Logi Capture because it's a pain in the ass. But yeah.
All right. Y'all have a good one.
Yeah, you too.
Well, guys.
All right, this was fun. Take care, people. CharlesShockCBD.com, code Danabo.